You watch it from in the chat. Yeah, sometimes I go this late on Friday, but those of you guys that hang out, you know that. Let's see how long we're gonna stay on tonight. Little wifey butt gotta go live as always, so we're gonna jump right in. Make sure that as you communicate with each other in the chat, you keep your messages short, respectful, and cordial. Don't flag the AI mod because it will censor you. We will not censor or block you, but don't be disrespectful to subscribers, or supporters, please. And that will keep you in the chat. So we got a couple of clips to jump right in. You guys see the title and the thumbnail. So we're going to start off. I think we're going to start off with JD Vance first. I wasn't going to go that route, but I'm going to start off with JD Vance first. If it seems like the clips are a little bit random tonight, that's kind of on purpose. If it seems like the sound is a little bit distorted, that's on purpose as well. Trying to keep the copyright claims and things like that down. All right, guys, let's jump right in. Let's see, do you want to start with JD?
She was trying to ram this guy with...
In the aftermath of yesterday's tragic, unnecessary, and illegal killing of Renee Good at the hands of a rogue ICE agent, JD Vance held a press conference today that put on full display just how anti-American he is. Here are a few moments from the presser.
One final observation here. When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline. I'm just going to read it. Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well, that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over the last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally, because this was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people. The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single day. What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile? What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself.
It's interesting because some people were saying with this clip that JD Vance, he was stuttering a lot. So they thought it was interesting that he was having trouble articulating himself during this press conference. Some people were saying perhaps he was nervous. So I thought that was funny.
He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Where did the Jewish people originate from? Are most of them...
Okay, so first off, I can't believe that I have to say this, but having some trauma from 6 months ago is not licensed to shoot and kill an unarmed mom in a car. And frankly, given the way that this ICE officer responded to a woman trying to drive away from him, that he would pull out his gun and murder her, I'm not especially surprised that he's got a history of violent run-ins. You gotta imagine that when the same officer keeps ending up in life or death scenarios, maybe the problem is the officer. Also, note how Vance is more angry over the accurate media coverage than he is about the fact that an innocent American, a mom of 3, was shot and killed. He's irate at the...
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Something that was weird to me about this is that, like, I guess the lack of care that it's American citizen. I guess there's a part of me I didn't expect them to respond like this. And it's like no one's saying anything in that regard. It's just kind of like, oh, this was a terrorist. I'm like, dude, I don't know. It makes me kind of nervous the way they're spinning this thing.
The fact that the media keeps framing her as the victim, God forbid, and not the poor ICE agent. So let's actually just look at the footage itself based on a forensic analysis from the New York Times.
He walks around the car filming and disappears from view. Other agents pull up and order the driver to exit her vehicle. One of them grabs at the door handle and reaches inside. The SUV reverses, then turns right, apparently attempting to leave. At the same time, the agent filming crosses toward the left of the vehicle and grabs his gun. He opens fire on the motorist and continues shooting as she drives past. The moment the agent fires, he is standing here, to the left of the SUV, and the wheels are pointing to the right, away from the agent. This appears to conflict with allegations that the SUV was ramming or about to ram the officer.
So when Vance decries someone ramming into this officer with a vehicle, that is fiction. It is an effort to justify the murder retroactively of an innocent American at the hands of a lawless agent. He went on.
What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job.
A broader left-wing network to attack. Okay, let's look at the actual facts. According to reporting, quote, Trump administration officials painted Macklin Good as a domestic terrorist who had attempted to ram federal agents with her car. Her ex-husband said she was no activist and that he had never known her to participate in a protest of any kind. He describes her as a devoted Christian who took part in youth mission trips to Northern Ireland when she was younger. She loved to sing, participated in chorus in high school, and studying vocal performance in college. So look, I understand that JD Vance really wants to convince everyone, including probably himself, that he and MAGA are the victims of some grand conspiracy against them, per usual, but that's only because the truth is just that bad. He is on the side of a rogue agency that claims to want to keep Americans safe, but instead is busy terrorizing and killing them. And then there was this moment.
Is there a risk with you describing her as a deranged leftist, talking about very specific facts of these events, when an investigation is just beginning? Are you preempting a thorough investigation by drawing such conclusions? And have you received any information beyond the videos we've seen publicly about this individual, her specific acts, that has informed your point of view?
Well, first of all, the Department of Justice is going to investigate this. The Department of Homeland Security is already investigating this. But the simple fact is, what you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who is trying to obstruct a legitimate law enforcement operation. Nobody debates that. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe, against our law enforcement officers. I think what is clearly happening here, and it's going to keep on happening unless the Democrats wake up and say, you know what, you don't have to agree with our immigration policies. You don't have to agree with what the president or the vice president believe about immigration enforcement. But why don't you take this to the ballot box? Why don't you vote? Why don't you organize? Instead, what some of them are doing is encouraging people to get violent with our law enforcement officials. It's disgraceful, and it's got to stop.
Look, I know that if you've got any humanity left, which is more than we can say about JD Vance, watching something like that will make you furious. It literally fills my body with rage. To hear the Vice President of the United States say that an unarmed mom who just dropped her child off at school and who tried to drive away from a rogue ICE agent who subsequently shot her in the face is a, quote, tragedy of her own making is a testament to the fact that there is no fucking floor for these people. JD Vance and his administration are depraved, soulless human beings. You cannot reason with them because they are beyond reason. They are captured by some hyper-online faction of their base. They are hyper-responsive to the loudest, most provocative voices and would rather cozy up to neo-Nazis than dare risk lose even the most extreme voices on the right. The reality is that this is what a fascist regime looks like. We're not heading toward fascism. We're not on the brink of fascism. We're there. But we have a small window to get out. I share these videos, horrific though they may be, difficult to watch though they may be, and frankly heartbreaking though they may be, because I still have some faith, perhaps naive, perhaps only on the margins, that there are enough people who have some adherence to basic reality left in this country, who can still see that ICE agents, like the one in this video, were in no danger, who can see that this innocent woman is not some professional agitator, who can see that she was trying to drive away, who can see that she did not deserve to be shot and killed, who can see that this agency and the administration officials who defend it are no more interested in law and order than they are in reining in corruption or helping make this country more affordable. I'm holding on to some hope that we've not lost every ounce of our collective humanity, even if Republican elected officials have. And by the way, there have been some promising signs on exactly that point.
I'm pretty right-leaning, but seeing this is not what you need to do. This is not how to do it. It's not how we're supposed to do things around here in America.
So look, if this White House wants to position itself on the furthest extremes, that's their prerogative. If they want to treat...
It was kind of crazy to watch how people were so torn over this. It was funny. One of my buddies at work today, I guess at some point he was watching a live stream, and even he kind of chimed in on it. And we talked a little bit about it at work, just kind of poking fun at each other about just the different angles and things that, you know, we saw. But I mentioned that a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump, or who even are on the right, they were enraged by this. They were outraged by it. You know, a lot of people just felt like the ICE agent was in the wrong. I don't know. What I see for the most part is that they feel like he was trigger happy, you know. And I mean, I did say something about training. We mentioned that a couple of times in the live stream, but at the same time, we also mentioned a few things like fight or flight being a real thing, and that the officer could have felt that he was just as much in danger as the woman did, you know. So let's keep watching.
Treat their own supporters and the American people writ large with so much contempt that they're asking us to ignore our own lying eyes, that's their prerogative. If they want to line up behind the very brand of tyrannical, rogue agency, big government that Republicans once used to condemn, that's their prerogative. But something tells me that that's a gamble that's not going to pay off the moment we have the chance to hold them to account at the ballot box in November.
Right, midterms, that's why it's important to vote. That's exactly why it's important to vote as midterms come up. All right, guys, let's go to the next clip. Okay.
Done. That's not been done in the past, and they had a good chance at it. Brought someone in that totally took it down, as everybody knows here, and that was Chavez, and we know what happened to him finally. But you know, that ruined the industry in Venezuela, and all of us know how that happened, ended very well, very, very wrongly. So anyway, we're glad to see what's happened here, and look forward for the opportunity for a lot of people in this room, but also for America and the country itself.
Are you going to be involved in going in? Because, you know, he's in North Dakota and he's in Oklahoma and some incredible places. It's a little bit different, but there's no doubt about you won't have to worry about the straw too much here. You can just go at it. Are you going to be one of the participants?
Well, certainly, you know, I'm an oil finder, like you said. You know, Barry Spitzer, you know, told that story.
The coach.
And he's kind of exaggerated a little bit. It doesn't come out quite that easily usually. But anyway, great story. I love it. But I love Barry.
Barry's the one that told me this.
Yeah, he's a champion, you know, in a lot of ways. So love that story. Certainly, it excites me as an explorationist. You know, everybody has that in their blood, and you know, it is a very exciting country and a lot of reserves. And so it's got its challenges, and the industry knows how to handle that. And like Darren said, you know, you go in with your eyes open and do the best you can with the team you got. So
well, you're going to have something that they never had really here is tremendous security. You're going to be very secure, very safe, physically safe in addition to financially safe. So it's good to see you, Harold. Thank you very much. Does anybody have anything to say before we get to the press?
What you have to do to avoid the same fate as Venezuela?
What would it feel like to wake up on your terms?
Bomb.
Biggest companies in the world, by far, I would say. And we're doing tremendous things.
All right, this is a longer clip, but I want to play this clip instead because I can fast forward through it and we can look at, like, I can go to the different people. I think we hear Marco Rubio in this one as well. So let's take a listen.
Our country is doing very well. You saw the numbers that got released today, yesterday. Deficits cut way, way, way back at levels that nobody's ever seen before, setting records. And the numbers coming into our country are unprecedented. And we're doing really well. We had a situation 3 days ago with Venezuela, and we're getting along extremely well with the people of Venezuela, both the people and the people that are running Venezuela. I just want to thank our military. What they've done is incredible. That was considered unprecedented, to go into a military fort with thousands of soldiers and others, and to come in with 152 planes going every which way, and very rapid speeds and helicopters, and to come out with no deaths and the loss of no equipment. It was pretty amazing. I was called by the numerous countries, I won't go into which ones, but the biggest and the strongest, and they said that was very impressive. They were all impressed. But today I'm delighted to welcome almost 24 of the biggest and most respected oil and gas executives in the world to the White House. It's an honor to be with them. We have many others that were not able to get in. I said if we had a ballroom, we'd have over 1,000 people. Everybody wanted. I never knew your industry was that big. I never knew you had that many people in your industry. But here we are. And if you look, come to think of it, well, I got to look at this myself.
So some people were saying, well, who's running it? Because Trump mentioned that the United States would be running Venezuela. So now, he's like, the United States is getting along very well with the people who are running it. So I believe he has some people in place. That's why I said that he would leave the vice president in place for some time and he wouldn't just, kick her out or axe her, at least not right away.
Wow. What a view. This is the door to the ballroom.
If you are sleeping in a position like this, you are wrecking your body and your breathing. Chronic neck pain happens when...
Unusual time to look, but I figure we might as well do it. If the fake news would like to go back and take a look, you can, but you'll see a very big foundation that's moving. We're ahead of schedule in the ballroom and under budget. It's going to be, I don't think there'll be anything like it in the world, actually. I think it's going to be the best. We went from, this is, as you know, our biggest room, which would seat 100 for dinner, maybe, if you're lucky, if you're nice and tight. And the ballroom will seat many. And it'll also take care of the inauguration with bulletproof glass, drone-proof ceilings, and everything else, unfortunately, that today you need. So we're going to discuss how these great American companies can help rapidly rebuild Venezuela's dilapidated oil industry and bring millions of barrels of oil production to benefit the United States, the people of Venezuela, and the entire world. And yesterday, the number is 30 million barrels. I can't even, is that a correct number? 30 million barrels. Do you hear that, Peter? Of oil was given to us by Venezuela. That's a lot of oil. It's about $4 billion worth, and it's on our way.
That's hilarious how he says it was given to us by Venezuela. You just got to love the way Trump does this. He said that's about $4 billion that was given to us by Venezuela. I'm like, okay, President Trump.
It's on its way to the United States right now. And we want to thank Venezuela for that. And we're working very well with them, obviously, or they wouldn't have been so generous. But they respect us again. They didn't respect us at all before. So that's money that goes to the United States. Some will go to Venezuela. And some will go to the oil companies, but not that, because that's already been extracted. So when you're not getting any of that, but when you start extracting, you'll get. But it's tremendous reserves, among the biggest in the world. Some people say it is the biggest in the world. And we're going to be working with Venezuela. We're going to be making the decision as to which oil companies are going to go in, that we're going to allow to go in. Going to cut a deal with the companies. We'll probably do that today or very shortly thereafter with Chris and Doug. And we're dealing with the country, so we're empowered to make that deal. And you have total safety, total security. One of the reasons you couldn't go in is you had no guarantees, you had no security, but now you have total security. It's a whole different Venezuela, and Venezuela is going to be.
If you want to have a job in the next 5 years, these are the AI rules you need to know.
Very successful, and the people of the United States are going to be big beneficiaries because we're going to be extracting, numbers of, in terms of oil, like, few people have ever seen, actually. So you're dealing with us directly. You're not dealing with Venezuela at all. We don't want you to deal with Venezuela. Let me thank Vice President JD Vance, who's doing a fantastic job. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, likewise a fantastic job. I have good people. I like them better than my first group. But despite that, we had a great first term. We had some great people.
That's hilarious how he says that. Everybody knows Trump didn't like his first group of people. So that's hilarious how he says it. He's like, I like him better than my first group. I just think it's interesting because, he wants to give this encouragement. I think some of that is because, Donald Trump not being your traditional politician, I think he sees how some of his guys get beat up, and it's just funny to see his response to it. He's always like, this person's doing a great job, and it's usually the person that the country hates the most at the time. So I always think it's hilarious when he does that. Whether he's doing it with Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, JD Vance, it's just hilarious that he does that. But he's big on propping up his cabinet. Even when they do fail. A little miserably.
Look, we had a great first term. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country in the first term, but this is blowing it away. And you haven't seen anything yet. Everyone's been shocked by the numbers, 5.4% GDP. And that's despite the fact that we were badly hurt by the Democrat shutdown, of which they'd like to see if they could shut it down again. Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, was fantastic. Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, recommended by Doug as being the greatest oil man anywhere in the world, because I wanted Doug for that job, energy, and Doug said, no, sir, there's a man named Chris Wright. I said, who the hell is Chris Wright? He said he's the most talented oil man anywhere in the world. I doubt you can get him, because typically oil men make a lot of money, and women. They make a lot of money, but Chris came. You took one of the greatest salary cuts probably in history, Chris. But he's a fantastic person, loves our country, and many other important members of this team. And I want to thank them for their efforts. As you know, last week, the United States Armed Forces performed one of the most spectacular military operations in American history, apprehending the outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro for his crimes against the United States, crimes for which he has now been indicted and is in federal court awaiting trial. And he killed many people, millions of people, actually, and allowed jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums, drug dealers, drug addicts to pour into our country totally unchecked because of Sleepy Joe Biden's policy of open borders, the stupidest thing I've ever seen. We're getting them all out. The departure of Maduro makes it possible an incredible future for both nations, Venezuela and the United States, in which we will more closely integrate the economies of two major energy powers in the Western Hemisphere. Energy coming out of Venezuela was very small. One of the things the United States gets out of this will be even lower energy prices. We have people now getting gasoline for $1.99, $1.96, $1.95, $1.92 yesterday, somebody. and it used to be $3.50, $4, $5 a gallon.
Yeah, I was taking a look at some of that. I think it was shout out to Benny Johnson. He dropped a post about that. I believe it was a post on YouTube. It could have been on X, but I think it was on YouTube, where he lists a couple of different states where gas was currently under $2. So it's fairly cheap. It's fairly cheap in my state right now. I mean, it's definitely for sure under $3. It depends on, it lingers from time to time, but it is cheaper than what has been for sure, I would say, in the last like 6 months, for sure, right, babe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like definitely in the last 6 months, I would say it's been cheaper. And if I go back 6 months and then I try to go to a shorter range, definitely in the last 3 months, it's been cheaper. But I'm not in one of those states where I'm lucky enough to pay $1.92. I'm not there yet.
Think of that, $1.99. Decades ago, the United States built Venezuela's oil industry at tremendous expense with American skill, technology, know-how, and dollars. But those assets were stolen from us, and we had presidents who did nothing about it. This president is much different than your other presidents. They did nothing about it. They stole it. Some of the people in this room were a little bit younger when that happened, but not that much younger. It wasn't that long ago, but they stole our assets like we were babies, and the United States did absolutely nothing about it. So now we're doing everything about it. Now we're doing 500% about it, but it's a long time after the act took place. So they stole from us, and it was taken by socialists and communists at the time, and Venezuela was going bad, really bad. And as much oil as they have, they're producing almost nothing, which is just a system. So we're really, if you look at it, we're taking back what was taken from us. They took our oil industry. We built that entire oil industry. Started a long time ago, but they took it, and they were very ungracious to this country, but now they're being very nice. American companies will have the opportunity to rebuild Venezuela's rotting energy infrastructure and eventually increase oil production to levels never, ever seen before. When you add Venezuela and the United States together, we have 55% of the oil in the world. The United States is number one. We have them drilling. Drill, baby, drill was my campaign. And Doug and Chris, I think we're setting records on drilling right now.
Okay, so we closed the doors to the opportunity that Tony and I shared at the AI Advantage Summit.
Taking oil without Venezuela. That's how we're getting the oil prices down. The plan is for them to spend, meaning our giant oil companies will be spending at least $100 billion of their money, not the government's money. They don't need government money. But they need government protection and need government security that when they spend all this money, it's going to be there so they get their money back and make a very nice return. The plan is for them to spend at least $100 billion to rebuild the capacity and the infrastructure necessary. Venezuela has also agreed that the United States will immediately begin refining and selling up to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan crude oil, which will continue indefinitely. We're all set to do it. We have the refining capacity. It was actually based very much on the Venezuelan oil, which is a heavy oil, very good oil, great oil. It's fantastic for certain things like asphalt roads, best there is in the world for asphalt roads and other things. All of the companies here today are going to be treasured partners in bringing the nation of Venezuela back to life, restoring its economy, and generating great wealth for their companies and for their people, and also great wealth for the American people, and tremendous wealth for the companies that are going in. The companies that are going in, and if you don't want to go in, just let me know, because I got 25 people that aren't here today that are willing to take your place. So I just want to thank, these are people that I either know or I know of by reading lots of business magazines and journals and papers. These are the greatest oil people anywhere in the world. Harold Hamm, I see, is here. Harold, there's a story about Harold Hamm that he could look at a piece of land, put a straw into the land, and oil pours out. Is that true about you? Whereas some of you guys have to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to find that oil. So we can't let that story be true. But they say Harold puts a straw into the land and oil comes gushing out. So you're not a big R&D person, are you, huh? He's called instinct for oil. Now, he's got other problems, but we won't talk about those problems. But he's been a great supporter of mine for a long time, haven't you, Harold? So congratulations. But we have, and I think Harold would agree, we have the greatest oil men and women anywhere in the world sitting in this room right now. And we have a lot of people that will be back to see us sometime next week. We're going to have another meeting for another group. But we're going to do this very quickly. We can have this done almost immediately. So I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to invite Vice President Vance to say a few words, followed by Secretaries Rubio, Burgum, and Wright. And then we'll have a few words from representatives that are here and to discuss their ideas, a couple of them. We have Chevron, which has been, where's Chevron? Where are you?
Far right.
Chevron's doing really good right now, but they've been like a long-standing partner with Venezuela when it comes to oil. So we're going to look at this clip in regards to Vice President JD Vance's remarks and then Secretary of State Marco Rubio's remarks, and then we'll move on to the next clip.
No, I said you'd have a better location. You were the only one that was there for all that. I used to call you and say, what the hell is going on with Venezuela? He stuck it out. I don't know if you made money or not, but you stuck it out. I got to give you a lot of credit for that. Mark Nelson, thank you very much. Exxon CEO Darren Woods. Darren, thank you very much. How's Exxon doing? Okay? They'll do a lot better now, won't they, huh? Exxon's been amazing. It's been an amazing company. And ConocoPhillips CEO Ryan Lance, thank you very much. So you guys could say something, and then we'll take some questions from the press. And if anybody else would like to speak, we'll have you speak. We have all the time in the world. This is a big subject. This is massive wealth, and more importantly than massive wealth, it leads to lower taxes and a lot of jobs for Americans and for Venezuelans, but for Americans in this case. And I just, again, appreciate you all being here. And I'd like to ask JD to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thanks to everybody for being here. You know, as a Marine Corps veteran for my entire lifetime, presidents, and let's be honest, they were Democrats and Republicans, would send the American military to far-off places. They would get us involved in these endless quagmires. They would lose hundreds or thousands of American lives. And the American people would get nothing out of these misadventures. Who's empowered the American military to stop the flow of drugs into our country and to ensure that we, as opposed to our adversaries, control one of the great energy reserves that exists anywhere in the entire world. And he did it without losing a single American life in the process. It was an amazing operation. It's going to make our country richer. It's going to make our country more powerful. It's going to make our country safer. And it's going to lead to the decline, the further decline of drug overdose deaths in the United States of America. An amazing thing, and I'm happy to be here to talk about how we can make it an even bigger and better operation for the American people. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Marco?
Hey friends, Eric here. And in this video, I want to talk to you about how you can retire with just...
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think this is a reminder that everything this president does, everything President Trump does is with the American people in mind. It was not in the national interest or national security of the United States and of our people to have in our own hemisphere a country, not just with vast energy reserves, but controlled by an indicted narco trafficker who flooded our country with illegal immigration, including drug gang members, openly cooperated with drug gangs, and by the way, stole the wealth of that country to fund a repressive regime and also benefit adversaries such as Iran. All of that is now changing. As part of this process, the first phase, of course, is the phase we're in now, which is the stabilization phase. We do not want to see destabilization in the country. We're working very cooperatively with the interim authorities there to provide a market for the sale of the wealth of Venezuela in such a way that benefits the people, both of the United States, but also the people of Venezuela. And as a reminder to everyone, the president announced this just 2 days ago. Every penny, everything they buy with the money that they're making from the oil now, Mr. President, will be bought from America. And that includes everything from equipment for the oil industry to food to medicine and everything in between. The second will be a phase of recovery, and then some of these phases will interlap, and that is to have a normal economy again where the money goes to the benefit of people, not the benefit of our adversaries or the benefit of
So this point that Marco Rubio brings up is actually important because some people were saying this is why you saw so many Venezuelans in the street celebrating when what happened with Maduro happened, because they were like, dude, he's a dictator and he's evil, starving people, you know, stealing money, you know, investing in things that better him and not the country and for the betterment of his people. So a lot of people were actually in the streets celebrating. And I would say, if anything, based on what, you know, the media is trying to sell to us, we would have like a handful of people that were super upset that their president just got kidnapped instead of him just resigning, you know, and someone else taking over. Like, just not appreciating or liking the process and the way the United States went about, you know, taking Maduro, which they basically stole him.
Elements in that country and around the world that are against our interests, at the same time as a process of reconciliation has to happen internally among the different sectors of society and politics and the like. And finally, the third phase, which is the most important of the three, is when the country fully transitions into a normal country that we have strong economic and diplomatic and relations with, that is friendly towards the United States, that's not a foothold for our adversaries, that serves our interests, but also the interests of the people. It'll be a country that is wealthy, a country that is prosperous for the people, not for a handful of criminals, but also a country that is supportive of our interests in the region and throughout the world. And we thank you, Mr. President, and the team you've assembled that have brought us to this point. A lot of work remains, important work, but this is historic.
Okay, thank you very much. Doug? Well, Mr. President, I want to thank you.
All right, so we're not going to listen to the other three because there's three more there that are going to talk. You guys can go over to DRM News and check that out. Let's go to the next clip of the live stream.
You're going to feel your life change forever. Just kidding. 1 gummy, you're going to feel chill and mellow. 2 gummies.
All right, shout out to Fox News. They got a chance to interview the vice president, and he revealed some details behind the Maduro capture. Let's take a listen.
Primetime went to the nation's capital today, where we got the chance to interview Vice President JD Vance. We asked him about the seizure and what's next in Venezuela. Also, are we going into Greenland? JD answers. And he also has something to say about his good friend Tim Walz and the Somalis. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Vice President.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Taking out a dictator in Venezuela, how does that help the average American?
Well, a few things, Jesse. First of all, what it means is we're going to be able to control the incredible natural resources of Venezuela, which is good for America in a few ways. Number one, it allows us to put leverage on our enemies. Number two, it makes sure that if Americans need high quality, low cost power, we're always going to have access to it. And then the third thing is it does demonstrate American military excellence, which makes people afraid to cross us in the future. Some of the best ways that you maintain the peace is to make it clear that you carry a very strong sword if you ever need to use it. So I think it's good for us in a lot of different ways. We also have to remember, Jesse, this is in our neighborhood. This is not Iraq. This is not 7,000 miles away. This is in our neighborhood. If we cannot follow the basic principle, which has been a cornerstone of American foreign policy for 200 years, that we control our neighborhood, a lot of bad people are going to take advantage of it. What the President of the United States said is, in our neighborhood, the United States calls the shots. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it is again under the President's leadership.
We just seized a Russian oil tanker. Russian submarines were trying to slip it past the Navy. This thing's heating up.
I think people overstate that. First of all, it was a fake Russian oil tanker. They basically tried to pretend to be a Russian oil tanker in an effort to avoid the sanctions regime. But people always ask, how do you control Venezuela? And we're actually seeing it play out in real time. The way that we control Venezuela is we control the purse strings, we control the energy resources, and we tell the regime, you're allowed to sell the oil so long as you serve America's national interest. You're not allowed to sell it if you can't serve America's national interest. And that's how we exert incredible pressure on that country without wasting a single American life, without endangering a single American citizen. That is called critical, high-quality diplomacy. We've done it. We've done it time and again, but we just did it in Venezuela.
The Democrats say Trump is greedy. He's all about oil and empire.
He's greedy to serve the American interest, and that's what you want in an American president. You cannot have people taking advantage of the United States in our own hemisphere. The President of the United States said he's done with that. I think it's interesting. The Democrats call the president greedy, but in what sense has any of this enriched him or enriched the administration? It's enriched the American people, which is what you want out of an American president. Somebody who's thinking to themselves, how do I serve the American people's best interest? How do I go and accomplish good things for the American people? That's a good thing to have in an American president. You want somebody who's greedy for the American people. The Democrats are greedy for themselves.
Well, Jasmine Crockett said you guys kidnapped Maduro.
We engaged in a law enforcement action. We had a legitimate indictment for Maduro for narco-terrorism, for weapons smuggling and weapons trafficking. And we went in with the best military in the world. We got our guy. He's going to stand trial. By the way, he's given the full due process rights that are entitled to anybody who's in the United States. I think he's going to go away. He's going to be found guilty. That's not a kidnapping. That's a law enforcement operation. And Jasmine Crockett, of all people, she has the least amount of room to talk on this stuff. She doesn't know what she's talking about. As the president said, you couldn't have a worse spokesperson, a person with less knowledge about.
And we have a clip that we're going to watch shortly after this. It's funny that he brought it up because I already have the clip in line of Jasmine Crockett describing, she's basically kind of bashing, and criticizing JD Vance over the Minnesota shooting, I guess because of some of the things he had to say here. So we're going to watch that shortly after this.
About world affairs, it's telling that she's the person speaking for the Democrats on this issue.
You guys have designated the cartels as terrorist organizations.
Because they are, yeah.
How do you win the war on drugs if Americans love cocaine?
That's the one big pushback I've gotten is when I criticize the Venezuelans for trafficking cocaine. You had a lot of people say, we don't like fentanyl, but some people do like cocaine. Unfortunately, cocaine is a very bad drug. And importantly, Jesse, it is a major profit center for the Venezuelan cartels. So if they sell a little bit of fentanyl, but a lot of cocaine, and they use that cocaine to spread and further their cartel operations, that means a lot more poison is going to be coming into the United States. So for all the people that love cocaine, I am sorry, the President of the United States does not love cocaine. We encourage you to go to rehab, and we're going to keep on pursuing America's interest.
Greenland, how far are you guys willing to go?
Well, the president is going to make the ultimate determination here, but there's been a lot of belly aching from Europe, and Europe has failed to contend with the fundamental argument the president and the entire administration has made. Greenland is critical, not just to our national security, but to the world's national security. People don't realize this. The entire missile defense infrastructure is partially dependent on Greenland. If, God forbid, the Russians or the Chinese, not saying they're going to, but if, God forbid, in the future, somebody launched a nuclear missile into our continent, they launched a nuclear missile at Europe, Greenland is a critical part of that missile defense. So you ask yourself, have the Europeans, have the Danes done a proper job of securing Greenland and making sure it can continue to serve as an anchor for world security and missile defense? And the answer is obviously they haven't. They've underinvested in their security. They haven't done a good job of securing that area, that landmass. And what I hear them say is they always make an argument about the past. They'll say, well, we fought together in World War II, or we fought together in the war on terrorism. And we're grateful for that. We love having these allies, but just because you did something smart 25 years ago doesn't mean you can't do something dumb now. And the President of the United States is saying very clearly, you are not doing.
This is a very good point. These are some of the times when I'm like, okay, JD, you're not making the millennials look too bad. And then, he has other moments where I'm like, good Lord, JD. You're going to have the whole country hate the millennials. Stop it. So, yeah, I mean, I think he makes a good point here. I remember when he made his trip to Greenland, right? Wasn't the best trip, right? A lot of criticism there. But I do remember him and President Trump being very explicit about Greenland not doing the best job with protecting that large landmass they have there. So, yeah, JD, like, VP has a point here. You know, if they were to launch a missile into Europe, and Greenland would be a very critical point, and that's the reason why, you know, President Trump wants in. I remember covering this much early in the year and talking about that's obvious why, like much earlier in 2025, because that's when all of this was occurring and they were taking their trips over to Greenland.
A good job with respect to Greenland. We're going to make sure we defend America's interests, and I think the president's willing to go as far as he has to make sure he does that.
They're saying it's too cold for American soldiers to handle. You've been there.
Who is saying that? Jasmine Crockett?
The Danes. Probably Crockett too.
Remember this? This is when the news clipped JD when he got off the plane in Greenland, and the first thing he said, I think he said it was cold as shit, or I can't remember, cold as hell. He said something like that, and that was like the first thing he said, and the news media like clipped it, kind of like making fun of him, like, well, duh, JD, you know, it's just cold that you're not used to. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
I think Americans have done very well in some very cold places. I will say I wouldn't want to serve there, but luckily the vice president's residence is here in Washington, D.C.
Okay. The Democrats have a little bit of a Somali problem. They've let it
America
go.
has a bit of a Somali problem.
Especially the Democrats in Minnesota. Why'd they just let it happen right under their nose?
Well, a couple of things, Jesse. First of all, if you look at the amount of fraud in the welfare system, according to the statistics I've seen, 85% of Somalians who are in the United States, legal and illegal, are collecting some form of welfare benefit. So that's not to disparage the other 15%, but when you have 85% of a population that is collecting welfare, that suggests that we have really done something wrong with regards to vetting, and that's the fundamental issue. Even if there's no fraud, 85% collecting welfare is way too many damn people collecting welfare, getting rich off the American taxpayer while a lot of Americans struggle. That's unacceptable. What's going on in Minneapolis, I think, is actually representative of a broader fraud scheme that we're going to see all over the country. We're going to see it in California. We're going to see it in other places too, where people get rich from the American taxpayer. The Somalian fraud, for example, daycare fraud. You've got Americans, we've got programs set up to make it easier for Americans to get their kids in daycare so they can have proper child care. You take that money and you siphon it off to Somalian fraudsters, that's a double theft. Number one, that means a lot of American families can't afford their child care. Number two, that means a lot of American taxpayers are being fleeced. It's totally unacceptable. I believe, Jesse, we're going to have some very big announcements on this stuff in the next couple of days. I don't want to get ahead of the president on anything, but we believe that there is a nationwide fraud ring that's rooted in rooted in illegal aliens and others taking advantage of the American welfare system. We're going to get to the root of it, and anybody who's involved is going to get prosecuted.
Well, if there's a massive fraud ring, there's a cover-up going on. In Minnesota, they were just caught forging documents, trying to cover their tracks. Should Tim Walz resign?
Well, I think Tim Walz should resign, but look, I've beaten up on Tim Walz enough. I don't want to do it anymore in your program. I almost feel bad for the guy, except for the fact that he should have seen this. And whether there was something criminal, whether he was aware of the fraud, which would be criminal, or whether he simply looked the other way, it's a massive, massive failure of government. Look, you have to ask yourself, if you're in Minneapolis and you have a person who came to the United States impoverished 2 months ago, and all of a sudden they're driving a Mercedes or a Lamborghini, it is your job as a public official to ask, how did that person get so rich so quickly when they're also collecting a welfare check? The fact that that's failed.
See, and that's where the red flag is at. He says, how does that person get rich so quickly, and they're also collecting a welfare check? So that's where the red flag is at. That's why he said that's way too many people just collecting welfare to begin with, at least within that small of a community. I mean, I don't remember the percentage on that, chat. If you remember the percentage on that, drop it in the chat. But how much of the Somali community was on welfare or receiving those benefits? I could have swore I thought it was like 80% or 85%. If you guys know that number, drop it in the chat.
so often in Minnesota, but frankly, it failed in California and other states as well, means that we have political, I would say political corruption, welfare corruption at a very massive scale. The Trump administration, by the way, we've already sent hundreds and hundreds of additional people, of resources that are starting to investigate this stuff, get to the bottom of it. Stephen Miller sent people who were literally going door to door at some of these fraudulent daycare centers and trying to understand just how deep the rabbit hole goes. But this is going to be a long-term effort from the Trump administration to root out corruption and actually look after Americans for a change and their hard-earned money.
You're sending investigators to California.
We are sending investigators to a lot of places to try to get to the root of this welfare fraud. I think what it revealed, Jesse, is something I frankly wasn't aware of until a few weeks ago, which is it's not just that people are getting welfare who shouldn't get welfare. That is true, right? These programs exist to take care of Americans who are down on their luck, not to enrich fraudsters. But it's bigger than that. It's that people take this money and create whole businesses around siphoning money from the American taxpayer. So again, you've got poor people who can't get what they need. You've also got American taxpayers who are getting fleeced. It is the ultimate lose-lose proposition. And I think Minneapolis just really revealed how ridiculous it was. I mean, Jesse, this is the most low IQ fraud scheme imaginable. Like, it's almost shocking that you would have people running a daycare with the quality Leering Center. If you're running a daycare and you can't spell the word learning or you can't spell the word kids, that suggests that maybe you should not be in early childhood education. And the fact that it was so obvious and so blatant does suggest a level of political corruption. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, Tim Walz should be worried because you can't misspell learning and take someone's money.
He should be worried for many reasons.
He called you weird. Remember that?
I know. Because I don't like Somali fraudsters. I guess that makes me weird. Guilty as charged.
Gavin Newsom, he says, you guys want to come look at California? Bring it on.
Yeah, well, we will. We appreciate that invitation, Gavin, and we are going to accept that invitation because, look, California, more than almost any other state, has been so glaring and obvious about the fact that they're giving welfare benefits to illegal aliens. Like, that's not, you go to the California Medicaid website and they will advertise that they are spending American tax dollars to give Medicaid to illegal aliens. You think there's not fraud there? You think there aren't people who are creating fraudulent doctor's offices, fraudulent payment schemes? There are. They're getting rich off of the generosity of the American taxpayer. The political corruption that enables it has got to stop, and that's what we're focused on.
Your administration had a big year, got a lot done. Now you're in your second year. What would be the one thing economically you want to achieve now?
Yeah, so the big thing we did achieve is we cut the trade deficit by over 60% in the president's first year in office. That's amazing. What that means is more jobs coming to the United States, more investment coming to the United States of America. I want to build on that. You know, we talk about this $18 trillion of new investment that's coming into the United States. I want to build as many factories as possible, give as many Americans high-paying jobs as possible, and make as much of our own stuff. And I think while we do that, we've got to tackle the housing issue.
And this is one thing that, like, if JD Vance were to take the presidency after Trump, that some people are excited about, because they do feel like that he's going to continue to push forward all of the things that Donald Trump either promised, is trying to do, or will do. And that's what's kind of encouraging people as far as, like, 2028 when it comes to JD Vance. He's right under President Trump. Some people thoroughly like what President Trump is doing, even though others really do hate it, right? So it's always going to be a split like that in America, because we have the right to vote for who we want. So it's always going to feel like that. But JD Vance, he does support a lot of, like, making things here in America and bringing jobs back here in America. So we do know that if he were at least to take the presidency in 2028, he's going to push that type of agenda and probably much of President Trump's agenda forward.
For a lot of young Americans, they feel like they're priced out of the housing market. The president's about to make some really big announcements on that stuff in the next couple of weeks. And what we're going to do is we want to preserve the wealth that a lot of people have accrued in their homes, while also making it possible for young people to afford their first home. make it affordable for young families to raise young families. And I think we can do that. I think that we've actually got some good policies that are going to thread that needle very well, be very good for young Americans and young American families. That's what I'm most focused on economically over the next year, because I think if you really give people a sense of ownership in this country, a sense that they can build something, build a nest egg, build a family, that is the trick to reinvigorating the American dream. That's what the president's most focused on, and we're going to do it.
Are young Americans getting married? Are they settling down, having babies?
Not like they used to, and that's a big problem, Jesse. I mean, think about it. What really makes life worthwhile? It's not your job. It's not what school you went to. It's falling in love. It's building a family. It's having kids. Those are the things that I think really bring meaning to most people's lives, certainly to mine. I imagine yours too, unless you're a crazy person, but I think you're a Republican. But that is happening less. And part of the reason it's happening less is what happened to housing under Joe Biden. It literally doubled in 4 years. Young Americans are telling us they can't afford to buy a home. They can't afford to start a family. They can't afford daycare because Somali fraudsters are ripping off the money that we're trying to put into the system to help people afford childcare. We've got to do a better job of giving young Americans a shot at the American dream. I think that we've made so much progress over the past year, but look, we're digging out of a massive hole that Joe Biden left us. There's so much more work to do, and we're excited to get it done.
And if you get the immigrants out of the country that came here illegally, that's going to bring prices down. Are we getting these illegals out fast enough?
We always want to get them out faster. A lot of the ICE agents that we have hired in the past 6 months, they're not even done with training. So all of the big investments that we've made in border security, what we've done is actually gotten 2.5 million illegal aliens out without any of the really big marquee things that we've been working on. That was just simple willpower and the President of the United States coming in and saying, this is done. I think we're going to see those deportation numbers ramp up as we get more and more people online, working for ICE, going door to door and making sure that if you're an illegal alien, you've got to get out of this country. And if you want to come back, apply through the proper channel.
If things don't work out for me at Fox, could I work for ICE? You never know.
You could work for ICE, but look, you're a very compelling communications guy. You can be a speechwriter, assistant speechwriter in the vice president's office if you ever find yourself unemployed.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube.
We know a lot of that comes from JD's friend, Charlie Kirk, right? He wants to encourage younger people to do that, right? That's why he says the meaning of life is really falling in love, having a family, right? But you have some people in the younger generation that'll say that feels unobtainable to me because the economy feels expensive, you know? So he still encourages that, and I actually think that that's a good thing to encourage, especially for the younger generation, right? I just feel like when it comes to marriage and it comes to children, that's not something that they're really interested right now. And I'm not talking like Gen Alpha, I'm talking more Gen Z, you know, where they're already working and establishing themselves and they're trying to, like, you know, build themselves and find themselves in the right type of career. I definitely think that, you know, pursuing marriage and pursuing a family is something that, you know, I think it's an honorable thing to focus on. And it's not something that would hurt anybody, if anything, but make them better. All right, guys, let's move on to the next clip.
For anyone with a bit of a belly, this is pure relief. No more belt buckles digging into your stomach.
Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is a former Associated Press correspondent.
So we're going to take a look at what Bill O'Reilly had to say about a few things. He's talking about some Trump hatred along with some Venezuelan news. So let's take a listen.
In South America, he's been around a long time. Ken Silverstein, he now is an independent investigative reporter. So am I making any mistakes in my analysis, Mr. Silverstein, first up?
Well, on Venezuela, spot on. And I have reported from Venezuela numerous times since going back to 1990 and Colombia too. I mean, the U.S. government, the CIA, clearly cut a deal, not just with the army, but with Delcy Rodriguez, who is, you know, going out and saying, you know, I mean, we'll never stand for this.
Let me interrupt you for a moment. The deal with Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president under Maduro, was made after the snatch, not before.
No way.
No. Trust me on this, Kent. She had no blanking clue because of snatch.
I mean, we'll never stand for this.
Let me interrupt you for a moment. The deal with Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president under Maduro, was made after the snatch, not before.
No way.
No. Trust me on this, Kent. She had no blanking clue because if she did, she would have blown the whistle. And she did not because she didn't know. You deal with the army generals who control the country, as you know. They controlled it when you were there, when I was there. Okay, they got the guns. Okay, it was made before the snatch. Go ahead.
Well, I disagree.
Okay.
Because,
fine.
I mean, there's no question that she doesn't have the authority to, and the deal had to be approved by the head of the army and the head of the Interior Ministry, who controls the guns, as you said.
But Dulcie has a cell phone and could have blown the whistle on any raid before it happened, and that's why she did not know. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So anyway, I think it was certainly a deal cut. There's no question about it. I mean,
So why didn't the Associated Press report that?
Well, I guess I call it. I hadn't read
you
that
know
article.
it. You know it. I know it. All the veteran reporters in the country had to know it, or you have to resign from your status of a veteran reporter. Why didn't the AP report it?
I absolutely think that mainstream media, with the exception of Fox News and Newsmax and
right, the right wing people, right,
the right wing, who are favorable to Trump for the most part. There's no question the media has a bias against.
I think it's interesting that he takes the stance that he thinks that the vice president knew, like, before Maduro was captured. That's a very interesting stance to take. He must have a reason for feeling like that. And that's the reason why I was interested in this clip, because I wanted you guys to chime in the chat. And if anything sticks out to you, just drop it in the chat. But I thought that was interesting because Bill O'Reilly corrects him and intercedes and says, hey, listen, no, she didn't have a blanking clue. But you could see initially when Bill O'Reilly says that the deal was made after Maduro was captured, he's like, no. And Bill O'Reilly's like, no, trust me, I know this part.
Trump, the mainstream media, the elite media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, AP. I mean, that's obvious. It was obvious. I wrote an article in 2016 before the election, before the presidential election, shortly before the election, which Trump won, which said, politically, you and I probably disagree on most things. We will agree on some stuff, but I'm on the left, but I worked for the New York Observer, which was owned by Jared Kushner. And I was given a column because I was considered to be like an honest lefty, which I think I am, because I will go after if I get a good story, I'll go after whoever it is. And, but it was obvious that, the media has always treated Trump unfairly. And I have to say, I guess I'm reluctant.
Now, you have to admit, this is kind of funny that this guy, he's blatantly says, I'm on the left. And he says that to Bill O'Reilly, like, we're going to disagree on most things. But he goes on the record, and right now he says to Bill O'Reilly, it's obvious that the media treats Trump unfairly. I think that's hilarious, because this guy boldly and explicitly says he's on the left. And then he says, yeah, the media treats Trump unfairly.
I'm going to say why the AP didn't do anything, because I maybe somebody else wrote an article that talked about a deal.
No, they didn't. We researched it.
Okay, well.
Okay, but here's my point. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because the folks are not in our industry. They don't do what we do. But the Associated Press is really far and away the strongest wire service in the world. It goes out everywhere. Okay, and they cannot stop, all right, with their anti-Trump coverage. Now, they do it a number of ways. they don't report stories, as we just demonstrated. If you and I know what happened, and I believe you did too, because I know your background, all right?
It's obvious, yeah.
They obviously knew what happened, but they wouldn't report it. That, to me, is sinful. That's deception. That's hurting the American people. It's hurting the people who rely on these information coming out of the Associated Press.
It's fundamental information that you cannot understand what's happening in Venezuela or what happened with the Maduro without knowing that. If they didn't report that, if they haven't, and I trust you that you searched for it and didn't find it, I haven't, which is why I was reluctant to say too much about this one guy. But, that's a terrible omission. I mean, it's...
And the guy, the White House correspondent, concentrates on chutzpah, put his own opinion in there. Yeah. And again, fine if he's a commentator, but it's a White House. And so what I want to know from you is, because you work for these people, and it's a whole different outfit now than it was when you were there. Do they know how dishonest they are?
Come on, guys, you gotta admit what the douche you're doing is hilarious. That literally is hilarious right there. Only Bill O'Reilly.
Do you think?
I don't think they do, and I don't think probably Stengel, you said he knows he's lying. I doubt it, because and this is a question that we will never be able to answer really, unless Stengel sends an email to somebody and says I get paid to lie, because it's hard to know. But I think the elite media is, again, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the CBS, CNN, they are unbearable because they are so sure they're right. They don't do any reporting. When I was in Venezuela covering an election 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and all of the reporters that came down, all they do is they're not stupid. You're right. They're not stupid. They're the cream of the country. They're Ivy League, and they're, I'm sorry, I don't know if you went to an Ivy League school, but it makes you dumb, because it teaches you that people come out thinking that they really are smarter than everybody else.
No, I know it. There's an arrogance and I did go to Harvard, but I got around that. I took a shot, a vaccination against it. Here's my last question for you. Okay, so if we are in a country that is dependent on a free flow of information, okay, we are dependent on it. As I said, the regular folks, they don't know Maduro. They don't know what's happening. They don't know why Trump did what he did. They hear and they're reading and they're not getting the story. I think the younger brigade of reporters aren't smart enough. They don't know what happened in Vietnam in 1964. They don't know the CIA was running South Vietnam. They don't know the CIA deposed the people over there. They don't know anything. And yet they're hired by these outfits to do important reporting. But if the American people can't get the information, isn't that going to damage our country severely pretty soon?
I mean, it already has, I think. It's, the media is, journalists, if you I write about the press because I think the press is an important, powerful institution, as powerful as Congress, as powerful as the White House. It plays an incredibly important role in shaping the narrative on every story. And, but you can't call reporters. They won't talk to you, because they're arrogant, and it's already damaged the country.
I see much worse stuff ahead. You're right. It has damaged the country. And if you compare the Biden coverage with the Trump coverage, I mean, it's just crazy. All right, Ken, thanks very much. We appreciate your voice. Thanks for being a stand-up guy and coming on. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on X. Look for @Bill O'Reilly.
It doesn't matter who came up with this design. I bet 99% of people have
criminals, but also a country that is supportive of our interests in the region and throughout the world. And we thank you, Mr. President, and the team you've assembled that have brought us to this point. A lot of work remains, important work, but this is historic.
Okay. Thank you very much. Doug?
Well, Mr. President, I want to thank you for your leadership, not just as president, but as commander-in-chief. The boldness, the execution, the breathtakingly precise work that you've delivered both in Iran back in June and here has changed the field for the whole world. And you always ran about the idea of peace and prosperity. And in Venezuela, as you know, this was a playground for every bad actor in the world. We had Russians, Iran, terror groups, all of them profiting from this criminal organization that was pretending to run the country. That makes America safer. You secured the border, we're stopping the flow of drugs, and now with the normalization of relationships on an economic basis, it's going to mean tremendously for the prosperity of the American people. So I just want to say again, congratulations to you and to the entire leadership team. It's been an amazing, historic week on the scale of things that we haven't seen perhaps for 125 years in terms of the U.S. Exerting its influence over Latin America in a way that's going to make a change for generations. And on behalf of all the oil executives that are here today, Chris and I want to say thank you to all of you. It's your technology, your innovation that has put America in the place where today we are the most energy dominant country in the world. And that position is what's allowed us to take the action that we're taking with statecraft, with military action. None of that would happen if we were dependent on everybody else for energy. So you're a big part of the reason that we're able to move the way we are today, and we're grateful that you're here to be part of the solution going forward.
Thank you, Doug, and you are doing a fantastic job, and we appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it. They know who's doing well. Chris Wright?
Thank you, Mr. President.
So before Chris starts speaking, I just wanted to go back to this because earlier in the live stream, we watched President Trump speak for a little bit. We watched Vice President JD Vance say a couple of things. And then we watched Marco Rubio chime in. And I went back where Marco Rubio was still kind of talking. And now we're going to hear from Chris Wright coming up. So we're going to hear the last, I think, 2 or 3 people. And then that's when we'll go to the next clip of the live stream. Hit that like button for me, guys. Thanks for stopping by and watching and tuning in, WChat. Thanks for being interactive in the chat. Hit that like button, guys. And make sure you subscribe to join the fam. We do this every single day except Sunday. Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, what we've seen in the last week is leadership matters and credibility matters. Venezuelan oil has been sanctioned for many years, and the oil just flew, those sanctions were not enforced. That oil just floated out to trafficked by bad actors of the world. The resources weren't gone to a central place. The corruption and decline of Venezuela has been a crisis for the people of Venezuela. And as Secretary Rubio said, massive spillover effects in the United States in crime, in drugs, in kidnappings, and in taking a huge resource base and making it not exploited, not developed. The whole world is a poorer, less opportunity-rich place because of that. When you have materials underground, they've been underground for 1 million years. That does not make them a resource. That does not make them valuable for your country, your people, or the world. They only become a resource with technology, with capital, with rule of law, and a system of governance that encourages the harvesting of those resources to make the better world. And we see here the dramatic contrast between the United States, which may have less oil underground than Venezuela. We have 20 times the production of Venezuela, 20 times the impact of human betterment, massively better quality of living here in the United States. That was at risk under the last administration. We've seen a lot of attacks on the energy that makes the world go round. President Trump's election has removed those risks, has embraced reality about how the world is energized, and we are record production of oil in the United States, record production in natural gas in the United States. We've seen a meaningful decline in gasoline prices, diesel prices, travel prices because of jet fuel. And now President Trump is taking the genius of a different way to try to solve a 25-year festering problem in Venezuela, that all the traditional things have not worked. But ordering both a tremendous military operation to remove the heads of a criminal organization masquerading as a government, and then to use the power of our military, not to fire bullets, but to stop the flow of Venezuelan oil to the world, immediately gave us leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela and has allowed us to be in this position today where the actions of this government can massively improve Venezuela for the better, and the bigger impact is to massively improve the quality of life, affordability, safety, and security of the United States. Very proud to be here. And I'll turn it over to Mark Nelson, who's the vice chairman of Chevron. Chevron has been in Venezuela for over 100 years, continuously. Mike Wirth, the CEO, had a knee replacement recently. He's not here. Mark is a tremendous leader in our industry, and I'll turn it over to him.
Addictions, chronic disease, depression, they're often vehicles of unresolved trauma.
Trauma doesn't make you weak, but understanding trauma helps explain the patterns that you've been stuck in.
I invite you to join me for Healing Days.
Together, we'll explore real tools, real stories, and a real path forward.
You can join by clicking on the sign below. I hope to see you there. Take care.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, no matter how smart you are, even if you're the best neurosurgeon in the world, you don't do neurosurgery on yourself because you're in there. You need something outside you, someone that's like what a coach does. You need a professional who's already got results. The real question is, how do you really get yourself to be in a place where you truly follow through, where you actually get the results that you really want? Well, the answer is, you really need to get yourself a coach. The greatest athletes in the world all have coaches. Why? When I was an athlete, I was better than some of the coaches I had, but I was not a better coach because I was in the game.
Tony Robbins Results Coach will get you to where you want to be. You see results immediately. Everybody's overall level has gone up.
I took home the lessons and I actually implemented them. Our company ended on a 69% revenue growth, which is ridiculous because we're talking about millions of dollars.
I think you need a coach everywhere because who's holding you accountable?
I'm so passionate about coaching because for time immemorial, that's how the job got done, where there was lasting change. Where there's someone there consistently with you that understands you, knows what you're missing, knows what you want, knows what the challenges are, knows what gets in the way. So here's what I want to offer you. If you'd like to test out one of my top coaches, we will give you a 30-minute free coaching session. Just click below, get yourself a coach, get yourself going, live strong, live with passion. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Secretary Wright. Again, I'll send Mike Wirth's regrets. He really wanted to be here, Mr. President.
Great guy.
On his behalf, I have three very quick thank yous and an assurance I'd like to provide you all. The first thank you, Mr. President, is to you. It's thank you for convening this gathering. It's thank you for your leadership, and thank you for continuing to keep American energy domination in the forefront. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
The second thank you actually is to the cabinet. So Secretary Rubio, Secretary Berg, and Secretary Wright, your ability and commitment to continue to engage with the parties around the table to keep the world working is greatly appreciated. So thank you for that. And the final thank you actually would go to our Venezuelan employees of Chevron. They have been working tirelessly to operate safely, protect the environment in country, and their dedication and skill will help us in this next chapter. And finally, I'll close with the assurance for more than a century, Chevron has been a part of.
I mean, I know that this was like, I really wanted us to watch the last 2-3 people to get some context, since we watched the first 3, you know, President Trump, Marco Rubio, and JD Vance. I know like they want to put this out there and present it as if it's a positive thing, but I just think there were so many people that didn't take to it well. I saw the intention behind it. I'm like, okay, they're really trying to present a united front. You know, they're trying to present it like, listen, what we've done here is a good thing. This is going to benefit not just Venezuela, of course, but the American people for sure. But it's just so many people were like, man, they're just dancing around things and they're just not being honest. So it's just interesting to just listen to this and hear this and see their approach towards things.
Venezuela's past. We are certainly committed to its present, and we very much look forward as a proud American company to help it build a better future. And so, Mr. President, thank you for your leadership.
And you really suffered there. You stuck it out. A lot of people left. A lot of big companies left. Many of the people sitting at this table left because of the safety risk and other risks. But you stuck it out. I give you credit for that. Sometimes it was hard. I remember 6 months ago I told you to stay, just stay. Things are going to happen. You'll be very happy. I didn't know they were going to happen this fast or this conclusively. One thing I think everyone has to know is that if we didn't do this, China or Russia would have done it. And if China or Russia were a next-door neighbor, because essentially this is not around the...
So what do you guys think about that when President Trump says that? When he says if we didn't do this, China or Russia would have done this. I mean, I think that's a fact. I'm just wondering if you guys agree with that. I think that's a fact. I mean, I know for sure it is at some point. Some people would have been like, oh no, shut up, Q. China or Russia wouldn't have done this. I'm like, no, at some point, I definitely think that they would have. Because some people were saying the same thing about Ukraine for years. And even watching Ukraine for at least the last, 12 years, I thought it was obvious. I'm surprised Putin didn't do it sooner, but I think he was just waiting for the right president, right? So would China or Russia have done the same thing that President Trump just did to Venezuela? I actually do think they would have done that. I don't know if they would have captured Maduro the same way. They probably would have killed him, if I'm honest. I'm like, believe me, there's other countries that make America look soft when it comes to war. Like, believe me, we got the technology and we're the #1 superpower, but you just go back and look at history. There's some pretty cutthroat, brutal countries. So I do think that they would have did the same thing, and they would have assassinated Maduro and his wife.
Other parts of the world so far away where you fly in an airplane for 24 hours before you get there. This is sort of a next-door neighbor, if you think about it. And I told China and I told Russia, we get along with you very well. We like you very much. We don't want you there. Not going to be there. And if we didn't do this, China would have been there and Russia would have been there. Maybe they both would have been there together, but they're not going to be there now. One thing I will tell them, and I will tell you.
Listen, did you know that there's a way to earn from home by helping businesses get to money?
That we are open for business. China can buy all the oil they want from us there or in the United States. Russia can get all the oil they need from us, and they do like oil, even though they produce a lot of it. But China and Russia and everybody else is able to go, and we'll be open for business almost immediately. I have a feeling the $100 million will be spent $100 billion will be spent very, very rapidly by these very big, powerful, and rich companies, and I think they're going to be able to rebuild the infrastructure. And I hope it's going to be brand new as opposed to a rehab, because I know the tremendous difference between the new and the not so new in your industry. The new is much more beautiful, much better in every way, and actually much smaller. It's like everything else, gets smaller and stronger. It's a combination of smaller, better, and stronger. So I hope you're going to build all brand new stuff, rip out the old crap that's been there for so many years, and do it the right way. You're going to be there a long time. If we make a deal, you're going to be there a long time. If we don't make a deal, you won't be there at all. It's, sort of interesting. But again, China and Russia would have been there if we didn't do this. And the other thing people ask about the second wave, I don't think it's going to be necessary. We have an armada, a giant armada like nobody's ever seen in that part of the world. And it's stationed off the coast. And we are getting along so well with the people that are involved in representing Venezuela that I don't think we're going to have any. I don't think it's going to be necessary to do the second wave. We were planning on a second wave, but the first wave was so powerful and so good and so strong. And frankly, the people in the country, they did the right thing. They were smart. They did the right thing. They didn't want to go through a second wave. But we've got a tremendous number of the most powerful ships in the world right there. I don't think we're going to have to use that. I'm happy to say that. I don't think we're going to have to use that at all. If I could ask Chevron, you did a great job. I want to thank you. And ExxonMobil, if you would say a few words, and then followed by Conoco, great companies, massive companies, great companies. Exxon, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity, frankly, for the entire industry to show up and provide a perspective. Frankly, we've been kind of unresponsive to the press regarding Venezuela. But I guess today's the opportunity to address the press directly with respect to a number of questions that have been asked of ExxonMobil. First and foremost, obviously, is the interest that we have in Venezuela. And I think, the way I would position that, I think one of the reasons why we see many of the industry players here is we're in a depletion business for a product that is in great demand and will be in demand for many, many, many decades to come. And as a depletion business, the biggest challenge we have is finding resources. There's an opportunity in Venezuela with all the resources there is we don't have that challenge of finding, we have the challenge of developing those resources. So I think it's in the best interest of these companies and frankly society as a whole for the industry to be interested in understanding what the opportunity here represents. I'll just share a philosophy that ExxonMobil has when we enter countries because we do business all around the world in a number of different regimes. We take a very long-term perspective. The investments that we make span decades and decades, so we do not go into any opportunity with a short-term mindset. And there's a value proposition that we have to meet. It has to be a win-win-win proposition. Obviously, it has to be a win for the company and our shareholders and to generate a return for the investments that we make. It has to be a win for the government. The resources are an important source of revenue that helps support the people of the places that we do.
Notice how he talks about the shareholders, right? It has to be a win for the shareholders. Well, we know that, right? That's obvious. But you can't leave that part out. It has to be a win for the company. It has to be a win for the shareholders.
Business, and it has to be a win for the people. We have to be wanted there and to be a good neighbor. And those three things ensure a stable, long-term platform for the large investments that we make for the long term. With respect to Venezuela in particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country. We're confident that with this administration and President Trump working hand in hand with the Venezuelan government, that those changes can be put in place. And with respect to the Venezuelan government, that perspective we don't have a view on. We haven't talked to the Venezuelan government, and obviously we have yet to assess the people's perspective with respect to ExxonMobil entering the country. In the short term, there are things that can be done while these longer term issues are being worked. For us, we haven't been in the country for almost 20 years. We think it's absolutely critical in the short term that we get a technical team in place to assess the current state of the industry and the assets, to understand what would be involved to help the people of Venezuela get production back on the market. With the invitation of the Venezuelan government and with appropriate security guarantees, we are ready to put a team on the ground there. We also have a integrated set of capabilities from production to refining to trading, and I think we can be of assistance to getting the Venezuelan crude to market and realizing a market price to help again with the financial situation in Venezuela. So those are my short-term perspective that I have. I'd say maybe close with a thank you, Mr. President, for the work that you've done to secure not only the national security, but the energy security of the region. And then thank you, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Wright, Secretary Burgum, for your leadership in this matter. Thank you.
What happened to our mental health? In recent years, more Americans than ever before.
How long would it take you, Darren, as Exxon to, if we make a deal, and if we make a deal, how long would it take you to get in there and get started?
Well, the first step, this technical team, as I talked with Secretary Wright earlier this week, we started from the beginning to put the team together so that if and when it was needed, we could hit the ground almost immediately. So we can hit the ground within the next couple of weeks. Start the assessment, right. And then from there we need to understand.
That's what we want. We want speed and quality. That's what we want. Thank you, Darren. And Conoco, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate the opportunity to be here too, and you've assembled a great team. And our congratulations as well for removing one of the.
So here's the thing. What do you guys think about what you're hearing? Because the business owners sound happy. I mean, obviously, we're not shocked about that. The business owners sound happy, though. They sound like they're about to have a great year, and they can't wait to see the outcome of all of this, right? They're giving President Trump all the praises in the world. So while they were probably sitting there at home in front of their television screen saying, I can't believe this president did that. He is so crazy. Like, this guy's a loose cannon. They're all here giving him praise. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Mr. President. We're looking so forward to everything that's coming in the future. We got to make sure the shareholders are happy. We got to make sure the company's good. But thank you, Mr. President. You've done a great service, Mr. President. I'm like, wow.
Terrible people in the world and bringing them to justice is quite amazing. I think you've given hope to the people of Venezuela again, which I think is quite remarkable. And we've been on the other end of that despot regime a long time. Our assets were expropriated. I had a little bit more hair when that happened. And, you know, I think we're the largest non-sovereign credit holder in Venezuela today. So we're at a bit of a different situation, but I think your big and bold idea to use energy commerce instead of conflict is something that could make a real big difference in Venezuela. And our company certainly stands ready to help in that endeavor. Encourage you to continue to think bigger and even bolder. And we've had some discussions with your energy team about that as well. As we think about the other people that need to be in this room and in this discussion are the banks, and including probably the Exim Bank, as we think about how the debt needs to be restructured and the financing to deliver the billions of dollars that are required to restore their energy infrastructure. And I think as we think that big and bold, we need to be also thinking about even restructuring the entire Venezuelan energy system, including PDVSA. And I think if we can do that and think bold, there's an opportunity to be quick, fast, and restore the quality of what's happened in Venezuela, or what's been lost in Venezuela over the course of the last 25 years. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, and you'll get a lot of your money back. We're going to start with an even plate, though. We're not going to look at what people lost in the past, because that was their fault. That was a different president. You're going to make a lot of money, but we're not going to go back. And you left a lot of money behind, I guess, huh? What number?
12 billion.
How much?
12 billion.
Well, it's a good write-off.
It's already been written off.
It's been written. All right, thank you. You'll make it back one way or the other. You're all gonna
see, and this is what I talk to you guys about Trump being a money guy, right? Like, he says 12 billion, you know, and instantly for me, I'm like, man, not even million or 1,200. This guy said B with a billion, and Trump just gets silent for a minute. And what do you think he's doing there? He's going through his little money brain, and he's like, that's a good write-off. And what does the guy say? It's already written off. You see this is why when I've been talking to people in a live stream about, like, not necessarily liking President Trump's ways, you know, his methods, I get it. They seem to lead to complete madness. But I said it, I think I articulated it well when I said, listen, we might not like the methods that he's using, but he was always a money guy out in the world. So we would be crazy to think that what he's doing in the secular world isn't going to bleed off into the presidency. presidency, right? The way that he would be a shark out in the secular world, getting money, building his wealth, building capital, we're seeing it in the presidency. It just looks a little bit more crazy because my man's like stealing whole people and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's playing, like my man's going over there and robbing countries of like their world leaders and like, yeah, like we'll take that, thanks. So it just looks a little crazy right now. That's all. But he's not doing anything different than what he would have done out in the secular world.
Going to do very well. I think really very well. Marco just gave me a note. Go back to Chevron. They want to discuss something. Go ahead. I'm going back to Chevron, Marco. Thank you, Marco.
Was there a question, Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead, Marco. What are you saying here?
Mark, if you can update us on operations in the ground and with the appropriate approvals, what you might be able to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months, give us a little view from the ground.
You bet. So today, Chevron has 3,000 employees in 4 different joint ventures. And over the past 5 to 7 years, they've taken production from about 40,000 barrels a day to 240,000 barrels a day, essentially getting those facilities and that equipment up to standards that would be something that people in the room would be more accustomed to. Given the work we've done with Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum and even Secretary Bessent, I think we have a path forward here very shortly to be able to increase our liftings from those joint ventures 100%, essentially effective immediately. We are also able to increase our production within our own disciplined investment, about 50% just in the next 18 to 24 months. And that's just leveraging what's on the ground. So to Secretary Rubio's comments about phase 1, this is taking the momentum of improvements we've already made there locally and building on those and creating more momentum for the people of Venezuela.
Do you think you have an advantage being there? You've been there by the skin of your teeth. It's been tough for you to be there. But do you think you have an advantage over the other people in this room by the fact that you are there?
Yeah, I think there are, Mr. President, I think there would be days where it didn't feel like an advantage, and there are days where it does feel like an advantage. But having people on the ground today that care desperately about the people of Venezuela and know how to operate the assets that are there is a definite advantage today.
Would you say the best locations are available, or would you say the best locations are already sort of worked, even though they're in very bad shape? The best locations for finding oil, the best locations for oil.
There are more opportunities than not, Mr. President. With 300 billion barrels of reserves and resources in country, there are lots of opportunities for many companies.
Will you be building new, or will you be using the old infrastructure that you have?
Yeah, today it's a little bit of a mix, but today it's mostly us taking the equipment of today, getting it to the standards that we are accustomed to your comments about making it how it should be today. Most of the investments that we've been making are about getting it up to our standards.
Well, I think you're going to make an investment, but you're going to get your money back very quickly, and that's part of our thing. We're going to have you get your money back fast, and then you'll give a lot to Venezuela and to the United States after that. Okay, so you'll be in good shape. Could I ask Harold Hamm to say a few words? He's been a friend of mine for a long time. Very amazing man, actually, amazing energy person.
If you live in a Delaware zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be here with so many dignified people, and this effort particularly. And thank you for your effort, for what you've done here, taking this despot out of that area. And the world dealt with him way too long. Certainly, our industry knows that this is a real jewel that can be developed for the people of Venezuela and also benefit the world. And like Secretary Wright said, it has not been done. That's not been done in the past. And they had a good chance at it. Brought someone in that totally took it down, as everybody knows here, and that was Chavez. And we know what happened to him finally. But, that ruined the industry in Venezuela. And all of us know how that ended very well, very, very wrongly. So anyway, we're glad to see what's happened here and look forward for the opportunity for a lot of people in this room. But also for America and the country itself.
Are you going to be involved in going in? Because, you know, he's in North Dakota and he's in Oklahoma and some incredible places. It's a little bit different, but there's no doubt about you won't have to worry about the straw too much here. You can just go at it. Are you going to be one of the participants?
Well, certainly, you know, I'm an oil finder, like you said. Barry Spitzer, you know, told that story.
The coach.
And he's kind of exaggerated a little bit. It doesn't come out quite that easily usually. But anyway, great story. I love it. But I love Barry.
Barry's the one that told me this.
Yeah, he's a champion, you know, in a lot of ways. So love that story. Certainly, it excites me as an explorationist. You know, everybody has that in their blood, and you know, it is a very exciting country and a lot of reserves, and so it's got its challenges, and the industry knows how to handle that. And like Darren said, you know, you go into your eyes open and do the best you can with the team you got. So
well, you're going to have something that they never had really here is tremendous security. You're going to be very secure, very safe, physically safe in addition to financially safe. So it's good to see you, Harold. Thank you very much. Does anybody have anything to say before we get to the press?
What does Cuba have to do to avoid the same fate as Venezuela? What does Cuba have to do?
Well, Cuba's in bad shape. Cuba relied on Venezuela for oil and for money. And nobody really knows what's going to happen with Cuba. They're doing very poorly. They're really third world all the way. And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans. And I would say Marco fits very solidly into that category. And I might ask you to say a few words about, we were discussing it before, Cuba is a very different, they don't have energy, they don't have oil, but they would live off of the oil from Venezuela. And what they do have is very strong people and very powerful people militarily, and they would protect the people running Venezuela, and they would take in a lot of money from Venezuela. Now they don't have that. They won't be taking in any money. So, Marco, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the fundamental problem in Cuba is that it's run by incompetent people that don't know what an economy looks like, much less a functioning one. They've made a choice, and that is they would rather have political control over the people than they would have an economy that functions. And they've gotten away with something years because they've had donors, the Soviet Union, and now most recently Venezuela. But that's now gone. So the people in control in Cuba have a choice to make. They can either have a real country with a real economy where their people can prosper, or they can continue with their failing dictatorship that's going to lead to systemic and societal collapse.
And very powerful people militarily, and they would protect the people running Venezuela, and they would take in a lot of money from Venezuela. Now they don't have that. They won't be taking in any money. So, Marco, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the fundamental problem in Cuba is that it's run by incompetent people that don't know what an economy looks like, much less a functioning one. They've made a choice, and that is they would rather have political control over the people than they would have an economy that functions. And they've gotten away with it for 60-something years because they've had donors, the Soviet Union, and now most recently Venezuela. But that's now gone. So the people in control in Cuba have a choice to make. They can either have a real country with a real economy where their people can prosper, or they can continue with their failing dictatorship that's going to lead to systemic and societal collapse. That's a very stark and dramatic choice, and it's one we hope to make the right one. We don't have an interest in a destabilized Cuba, but that would be their fault because they refuse to allow the people of Cuba to have either economic or political freedom for that matter.
And you have a lot of people in this country that want to go back to Cuba and help Cuba. A lot of people have left, you know, they came in penniless, they didn't have anything, and they've become very rich people in our country, and they want to very much go back and help Cuba. So that's something that Cuba has that a lot of other places don't have. Peter?
President Trump, thank you. I do want to ask you about Minnesota, but first, just more on topic. President Zelensky said that he was watching with the rest of the world as you made this order to go and
All right, guys, so the next clip we're going to go to, we got Jasmine Crockett's clip up. Remember I said that since JD Vance ironically mentioned her, we're going to go over to that. So she's pretty much condemning him over the ICE shooting. So let's take a listen. You know she gets crazy and spicy in her Senate hearing. So let's take a listen to what she's talking about. Like, here we go.
Bomb doesn't get shot 3 times in the face, so she can go home to her 6-year-old child, and so we can go back to the country I know we are. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request.
The gentlelady will stay unanimous consent.
I'd like to enter into the record this CNN news story. Minnesota Investigations Unit, FBI denying access.
Without objection,
case
so ordered.
materials, refusing to work jointly on probe into fatal
It
ICE
is not,
shooting.
the gentlelady has given the title,
That's
and
the
without
title.
objection, it shall
That is
be
the
in
title,
the
Mr.
record.
Chairman. The entire thing is the title. Minnesota Investigations Unit, FBI denying access.
Without objection,
to case
it'll be entered in the
materials,
record.
refusing to work jointly on
Who else
probe
seeks
into fatal
recognition?
ICE shooting.
The gentlelady from Texas is recognized to strike the last word.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd ask to strike the last words.
Gentlelady's recognized.
Thank you so much. It is so hard to sit here sometimes because I didn't come to Congress to write laws or to do things that are hurting people. I'm just asking if there's any decency or heart or courage on that side of the aisle. The fact that a woman was killed, she was shot in her head, and y'all are pretending like nothing happened. I remember when Charlie Kirk got killed. Do you remember what our response was? Our response wasn't to sit there and pretend like it was okay. Is it okay because you have a badge? Because the last time I checked, allegedly no one is above the law. Can y'all not just have a...
There was somebody who we reacted to yesterday. Shout out to Valhalla TV. He's a channel favorite, so I've reacted to him on the channel a couple times. And I really did enjoy watching his perspective of things because based on what he saw in the video, he just, he didn't appreciate, the ICE agent's reaction to it. And at the end of the day, some people were really blown away by some of the rhetoric out there that because she was on the left and she was a once married woman who was now dating a woman and raising a 6-year-old boy, that this was like some outraged lesbian that was on the side of Somalis, and she didn't care that much about white America, so somehow she deserves to die. And I'm like, this is like some weird rhetoric that I'm seeing being pushed out there. Like I even said it earlier in the live stream. I said, here's what's worrisome to me and what's bothersome. Like, she's still an American citizen. So I guess where I'm a little confused at, if I'm just being transparent with you guys, is that why isn't anyone mad that, like, ICE just killed an American citizen? Like, I don't even care that she's a lesbian, ex-husband, girlfriend. I don't care about none of that stuff. It's like ICE is there to make sure that the illegal immigrants who are criminals aren't in the United States. So it's like, why isn't anyone condemning them for killing a legal U.S. citizen? That's just like so confusing to me right now. It just makes me think that, I don't know, it's giving some sort of conspiracy. I just can't put my finger on it right now. I'm not going to say the cabal, though.
A little bit of courage and humanity. A child. The child has lost her mom. And y'all want to pretend that it is okay. I am asking if there is anyone that will stand for the very people that elected us and sent us to Congress. You tell us things like, well, the immigrants are bad. And so we got to get all these bills because the immigrants are the ones that are causing the harm. They're bringing the crime. The mayor of Minneapolis told y'all to get the fuck out. Yet y'all are the ones, it is this administration that is bringing crime to their streets. That's what's happening.
It's the third incident where somebody has dropped an F-bomb in this committee, including a video.
I'm sorry.
Including a video that we had to watch earlier.
Are your princess ears okay?
Is it profanity?
Well, you're
princess
more
ears
upset about my words than you are about the fact that a woman
Are you House of Representatives?
The gentlelady.
Are we offending your princess ears? Are they that soft?
All members will
maybe some of the kids out there.
Mr. Chairman, it is the gentlelady's
You're killing
time.
them.
Kids.
It is the gentlelady's time. Let's let her have her time.
It is the gentlelady's time. Would you stop?
See, I already knew this wasn't going to play over, right? Because he said, I'm not going to lie. Now, listen, being an on listener, like, dude, he sounds so insensitive. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, you guys can say whatever you want. But someone breaks down like that and they're trying to point out a specific point. And all this guy can say is, here's someone go saying the F-bomb again. And look, the whole freaking court erupts because I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, somebody just kind of put a heartfelt thing out there. You could call them a gaslighter or not, but you look like a douchebag just coming out of nowhere talking about there goes the F-bomb again. Like, and you guys can get mad at me for saying that, but you can literally hear one of the representatives in the background like, oh, we hurting your princess ears? Like, you can hear them making fun of him because they think he's being a douchebag for saying that after saying what she just said. Like, that's hilarious to me.
Stop the clock for a moment. Okay, and I'll restore that. The chair will remind all members that the person controlling the time is not to be unreasonably interrupted. We would further admonish that whenever possible to express the full meaning of something, it be done so without an expletive that may be offensive to people here in the audience or those who watch this on television. I understand that a quote at times is essential, but I would admonish everyone that it has been the practice of this committee for the many years I've been here to use such things as F-bomb in order to get the message out without actually using the word. Notwithstanding that,
I mean, there is something to what he's saying here, right? So we can't even get mad about this because there truly is a term called courtroom etiquette, right? People have literally been put in a holding cells for not abiding by it. So yes, like, we can't lie. There is a such thing as courtroom etiquette. So he has every right to say this, that it's not good to drop the F-bomb in court. I'm not saying that Jasmine Crockett listen, I get you guys. It's like, oh, she's a gifter and she's this. I'm not saying that's not true. What I'm saying is that if you're just listening, she had this deliverance, call it a play or whatever you want. That's fine. I'm just saying, talk about being tone deaf. Like, the dude doesn't even acknowledge anything she said. He just comes out and he's offended that she said the F-bomb. And that's why you have another man in the room saying, oh, did we offend your princess ears? Because someone was actually listening to her. And even if they don't agree, they were still listening. And they're not tone deaf enough to just say, oh, you're cursing again. So, yeah, that's why he got made fun of. I'm just saying. But, yeah, courtroom etiquette is a real thing.
the gentlelady will be recognized for this time plus an additional 20 seconds. The gentlelady may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Long story short, we are sitting in judiciary and no one on that side of the aisle seems to care that this particular person, whose name we don't know at this point, became the judge, jury, and executioner. I don't know how you square that. And then we're sitting here literally in markup for a bail funds.
Hey friends, Eric here. And in this video, I want to talk to you about how you can retire with just 3
bill. When I first ran for office, it was in the midst of yet another lynching by law enforcement in Minneapolis. At that time, it was George Floyd. I remember working as a pro bono criminal defense attorney to help protesters that were being arrested. There were more than 600 protesters that were arrested in Dallas. There were churches that came together to make sure that there were bail funds. There were nonprofit organizations. And to explain how it works for bail, since we're in judiciary and we're writing the laws, and some people may not understand this, but those bail funds, those nonprofit organizations are not the ones that determine whether or not somebody gets bail. What they do is they help out poor people, which I know y'all are not interested in either. But they help out people that aren't rich and famous and have limitless amounts of money, like all of the Epstein defendants who somehow y'all can't find, even though y'all went and got Maduro. But it helps out those people to be able to get out of jail. Many of those people that if they spend just a couple of days in jail will then be thrust into straight up poverty because they will lose everything. Why it is that you want to criminalize people such as churches that are trying to help the poor because they understand what the Bible says, and they don't just say that they understand it or say that they love Jesus, but they decide that they actually put it into works because faith without works is dead. That is wrong too. And I'm here to tell you that there's going to be a lot of nonprofit organizations that are going to step up in this moment, because there are going to be protests around this entire country because of the state-sanctioned execution that we all saw unfold, unless there is some kind of justice that takes place and we get the name of that officer and that officer is prosecuted. So I ask that law enforcement, we have oversight over them. I am the oversight ranker. Let's go ahead. In fact, I make a motion that we have a hearing in the oversight subcommittee as it relates to this particular issue and what took place.
The gentlelady was not recognized for purposes of motions. Does anyone else seek recognition? Seeing no others, the question now occurs on the adoption of the amendment in the nature of the substitute. This will be followed immediately by a vote on reporting the bill. All those in favor of the amendment in the nature of a substitute, say aye. Any opposed? No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. No.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Jasmine Crockett's performance, as some would call it. You know, so I just thought it was funny. I wanted to play that clip because I laughed when I got a chance to watch it in its entirety earlier, and the whole Senate pretty much erupted because the guy pointed out her using the F-bomb, and then another guy starts making fun of him. All right, guys, let's move on to the next clip.
Okay, there's no audio on this one, but they're approaching and they're saying, get out of...
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning. Just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, forward fucking back. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car. Oh!
The main story of the day, obviously, is Minneapolis.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Why don't you set the table for us? What happened in Minneapolis?
This was happening during the show yesterday.
Well, that was an interesting angle. I actually didn't get a chance to see that angle. Who's the guy that called her that? Was it the guy that killed her? Dude, you can't make this stuff up, man. But yeah, she's the one. I mean, he sounds pretty angry there. I'm just saying, as someone who's been trained, oh my God, this is hilarious to me. Okay, this guy's funny.
We didn't have the chance to react to it. Let me make sure I've got the stuff for it. We didn't have a chance to react to it, but it was breaking at the time, and we got videos right after the show. So what happened is ICE has surged into Minneapolis. They're doing raids, and by extension, we're getting all the things that the left has trained people to do against ICE in last year. You have people following them, you have people harassing them, you have people trying to clog up traffic. And unfortunately, yesterday it did result in a fatal shooting, and I guess we may as well just play it. So this occurred yesterday somewhere in Minneapolis. Let's play 275.
Is your card in there that you're trying to send it
Okay,
There's no
so
audio
no
on this
audio on
file.
this one, but they're approaching and they're saying, get out of the car, get out of the car. She backs up and then she accelerates away. And what happens is there was an ICE agent behind the one you could see approaching the side
Who was
door.
directly in front
and
of the car.
he was in front of a car and she sort of turns away from him, but she brushes against his leg. And he'd already, I believe, drawn his weapon at that point. And I think in the split second, he reached the conclusion she was possibly trying to run him over. And he shot through the front window and killed her instantly.
Yep. And then you can see it in slow motion right there. There's a second angle which clearly shows that the ICE agent was actually hit and clipped. And you can also see her wheels are spinning out because it was icy. It's cold. Her wheels spin out. When the shot is fired, if you freeze frame it, her wheels are actually turned towards the.
Yeah, that was something my wife pointed out. At least one thing I can appreciate in this clip is that I can hear it, so it sounds like she did actually clip him. And that's something that I haven't been able to hear this entire time, because every video I've seen some pretty good angles, but the audio was not, as, I guess you could say, up close and personal as this audio was, where you could actually hear it. It almost sounds like the car knocked into him, or I know they kind of knocked into each other, but I think that's because of the vehicle. So this was the first clip I was actually able to hear the sound so explicitly.
Yeah, and his body.
ICE officer. I suspect that the wheels only turned to the right once the officer drew his firearm. I looked at this clip by clip last night. Here's 300, clip 300. This is with sound. Make sure we don't have any swear words in this. Clip 300. If you're anything like me, this holiday season, you want to give a gift that actually means something. People together. Apparently, she has from local farms and ranches and delivered right to your door. Whether it's for family, friends, employees, or clients, Good Ranchers makes thoughtful gifting simple. Visit goodranchers.com to start gifting. And while you're at it, treat yourself with your own subscription to America's Best Meat. So here's what's interesting, though. This 37-year-old woman, apparently she has a female partner, the kid. First question, I don't know what a 37-year-old woman with a kid is doing out there, going head-to-head with ICE agents, doing some sort of citizen vigilante, observing. That's not observing. She was obstructing. And here's a witness that actually basically defines this lady as the main car leading the protest. 281.
They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but because she
obstructing. And here's a witness that actually basically defines this lady as the main car leading the protest. 281.
They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal.
That was her goal.
That was her goal. Well, so I think my read on it is I don't believe she was attempting to run anyone over. I think actually, I'll have longer thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So I'll want a strong reaction to that. But I think this was a tragic accident. But the most important takeaway is it's a tragic incident that's been caused by the left's strategy to harass ICE, to intimidate ICE. And ultimately, the left wanted something like this to happen. Their strategy is designed to produce something like this.
You were building out this idea that this is ultimately the Democrats thought would happen in
with
Minneapolis.
this Minneapolis shooting. Well, let's tee it up. So a thing that's built up to this is just this violent, there's been a growth of violent rhetoric against ICE, intended to delegitimize it as an institution. I know we have some clips related to that.
I think it's interesting for this onlooker. I'm not sure exactly who this woman is. Did it say who she was? I'm not sure who she is, but maybe an eyewitness of some sort or a participant. But they have some sort of statement, just a witness from her husband, her ex-husband, and he said that she's never been known to engage in this type of stuff. Like, she doesn't normally like go to protests, and she's not any type of activist, and she normally doesn't get involved in this type of thing. So I just thought it was interesting because yesterday Valhalla TV also played it from an angle where we see her kind of flagging the police in a way where I guess she's kind of telling them to go by her. But I mean, like, then we see this angle right here. So I just think it's interesting. This is the one that I've seen that's definitely been the most explicit when it comes to the officer getting hit or getting clipped with the car.
So most recently we had Democrat Representative Joe Morrell says there is no violent rhetoric against ICE. He hasn't seen that anywhere. He said there was none. We'll show that clip, 279.
Frankly, what's really frustrating about this, I saw Speaker Johnson's comments, who immediately says that there's been this effort to encourage people to engage in violence with law enforcement officers. That's not true. I haven't seen that anywhere.
Okay, well,
that's not true.
Our team whipped up a montage of some stuff. Let's play clip 280.
When I see ICE, I see slave patrols.
Picked up by, hooded thugs in the street.
ICE, thugs.
Nondescript thugs.
Like vigilantes.
ICE is a terrorist organization.
And kidnapping and disappearing people.
Stealing and, yes, kidnapping people.
The vice mayor allegedly calling on gang members to defend the city from these immigration raids.
I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles.
Stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors.
Every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Our police do not cooperate with ICE.
Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE.
Democrats told to get shot for the anti-Trump resistance. There needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public.
That last one is the really revealing one, and you can find more. You can find articles that call them the American Gestapo. You can find tweets and Blue Sky, whatever they call a Blue Sky post, like the American SS.
Hi, it's Gabor here. I'm inviting you to join me for Healing Days.
I think it's interesting. I shouldn't be shocked, though, right? I was about to say to my wife, like, of course the Charlie Kirk show would have the angle where we could explicitly see and hear the ICE agent getting hit, right? I've had trouble. My wife said this is actually the video that people were talking about yesterday in my live stream that they were telling me to try to find, because BBC News had a great angle, but I guess this was an angle that other people had saw on the Charlie Kirk show. Shout out to tech support and a couple other people who we were watching this over and over again. Shout out to one of my guys who I work with who was in the live stream. Shout out to you, Ali. So it's interesting to see that, because that's I'm not gonna lie, that's a really good clip. Like, that's the first time I've heard like the sound was so explicit to where I'm like, oh, it sounds like the officer did get hit. Like, she did clip him. Yeah. You could see, I'm not going to say you see the level of aggression that Kristi Noem is talking about. That was just outrageous the way she described everything. But I definitely can explicitly see that the officer may have been hit or clipped with that vehicle, which in return, I can see why that would trigger him to then pull his trigger. Let's just put it like that. All right, guys, let's go to I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying I could understand. Like, he could have been triggered from being hit, and I could just see why he would have gotten a little trigger happy because of that. So let's go to the next clip.
Yeah, I think because people forget the type of He's probably been in a lot of stuff.
And it makes sense because they did say something about he had just been into some type of accident, right? Like JD said something like that, and a few other people, like this man had just been like, I don't know if he was hit by something or in some type of accident, but that had just happened to him, and he was like, and then this lady comes and tries to like run him over with her car. So yeah, he definitely could have been a trigger, something that went off, and he just felt like he needed to fend for his life, and that's why he shot.
At least enough to completely fill this block.
Welcome back, everyone. We're suspending our high school rally show to cover some breaking news taking place right now on Washington Avenue in Minneapolis in front of the Canopy Hotel, where there's a disturbance and a lot of activity involving police now.
Yeah, our Connor White is actually out there, and Connor, it looks like State Patrol is now out trying to kind of corral people.
Aaron Frank, State Patrol and Minneapolis Police. The Minneapolis Police Department just gave an order over the loudspeaker saying that this is an unlawful assembly. They're asking people to clear the area now. Now, this is that protest that we brought you to at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. It is the noise protest at the Canopy Hotel. And as you can hear behind me, people are still making a lot of noise. They were originally here because they wanted to make life difficult for ICE agents that they believed are sleeping at the Canopy Hotel tonight. Now, we've seen police as well as state troopers staged in riot gear on either ends of this street. There was some confrontation between protesters and officers where there was a lot of verbal confrontation, I should say. I haven't seen any physical contact between the two just yet. A lot of people have dispersed, it seems, or at least spread out. There were a lot more people here as recently as half an hour ago. But I will say, as you can see behind me, there are still people here. There are still people here despite the order for everyone to clear out. So Aaron Frank will continue to bring details as this develops, but so far the peace has been kept insofar as no physical conflicts between officers and protesters.
Hey, Connor, a couple of questions if you can hear us. Can you quantify a lot? Like how many people were there at the peak of it? And also, what time did it start? You know, I mean, it's 10:35 right now. Someone's staying at that hotel. I'm sure while they may be sympathetic, they're probably a little upset. But has this been going on since 8 in the evening or only 10 o'clock? So how many people and how long has it been happening?
Well, Frank, it started at around 7 o'clock. At least that was the schedule. And there were hundreds of people here, at least enough to completely fill this block shoulder to shoulder. We're going to bring the camera around here as state troopers are now moving in a little bit to congest the area. Yeah, there were hundreds of people here a little while ago. I'm going to step out of the way as state police come through here. They want people out of the intersection.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a jewelry unboxing.
And they are holding the line just here. So they are tightening the perimeter. We have state troopers here on the other side of the street. That appears to be Minneapolis police. You can see through there that vehicles are blocking off passage down the road. So right here, this really is the bulk of the people that are still here. At least, I'd say, at least 3-4 dozen, perhaps a bit more if you include those on the sidewalk continuing to make noise here. But again, that crowd has dissipated. As we have seen earlier, there were hundreds marching through the streets as well.
Are these folks confident that ICE agents are staying at the hotel?
That's the intel that they have. That's the reason why they're out here. The sole reason they are out here tonight, Frank and Aaron, is to make noise because they believe that ICE are staying in that hotel. We've seen protests like this throughout different parts of Minnesota, really since ICE activity began to ramp up back in November after some activity over the summer. So we've seen this tactic before from various groups. This is probably the largest that I personally have seen. Of course, it being a Friday night, a relatively mild Friday night, as far as January in Minnesota goes, that would have been a factor in bringing a lot more people out to this downtown area.
And so, Connor, they're asking people to clear out, declaring it an unlawful assembly. Any intel into the timeline there, or what makes it unlawful at this point?
I would assume the unlawful side comes from, we're not sure whether or not a permit was required for this number of people to be here, but we have seen at certain points throughout the night.
So it's like, I think this is hilarious that they're doing this in front of this large hotel. And it's like, these people have paid to stay there for the night, and they're not about to get any sleep. Like, you hear these drums, they're banging on cans, they're screaming, they're blowing whistles, and I'm like, wow, that is inconvenient to say the least, and rude.
Night that this intersection, other stretches of this road, Washington 3rd, have been shut off, or motorists have had to maneuver their way around people that were in the street. So that could play a factor here. We also know around the other side of the canopy, towards a parking garage or a ramp, that some people seem to have opened a door on the side of the hotel. It's unclear whether or not you could say that they were inside, so to speak, but a door was open, people were moving in, and one of our crew members did see an object was thrown at the hotel about an hour ago. Nothing broke, no windows shattered, but that may have played into possibly more 911 calls that brought out the police presence that you now see behind us.
Odd thing too is that I remember your reporting earlier. You said this started at 7, but there weren't any police or state troopers there until what, about the last 10 or 15 minutes? I mean, they just let those people make racket there for 3.5 hours. Correct? There were no police.
Not that I could see. Again, they were marching in different parts of the city, so there were likely police monitoring that situation. But in terms of this kind of police presence with riot gear, batons, really people at the ready for a possible conflict here, no, nothing of that kind.
Connor, if you can still hear us, frankly, we've been reporting that obviously the governor readied the National Guard. And so we're assuming, Connor, you're not seeing anything like that, any National Guard presence there, just MPD and Minnesota State Patrol?
No. At the moment, it looks like State Patrol. It looks like Minneapolis Police. I am seeing down the block, it looks like there's potentially a Hennepin County Sheriff's Office vehicle, but no presence of the National Guard or...
Yeah, so I just wanted you guys to just clip that, like, just a little clip of, like, how some of the protests are going, specifically in Minneapolis, because that's where all of the drama's at. I just think it's so hilarious how they're being so rude. Like, these people are about to get not even a little bit of sleep. So, yeah, let's jump into the next clip, guys.
The Wonder Oven Pro is an 8-in-1 non-toxic air fryer toaster oven. Now with...
Okay, shout out to Brandon Lehman. He is a channel favorite. Been rocking with Brandon for a while. Have reacted to him on the channel since the beginning of me being in the political sphere. Love his take on things. He's doing exceptionally well. I've been following Brandon since he had way less subscribers than what he has now. So go check his channel out when you guys get a chance. Let's see what he covered about Tim Walz. He always does a great take, has great clips. Shout out to you guys. Hit that like button.
Campaign contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Walz is finished. Congress held a hearing regarding the Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota, and witnesses included actual Minnesota state officials who testified that Tim Walz 100% knew about the fraud because they had been sounding the alarm for years, but were ultimately coerced and threatened to remain silent and ignore the blatant fraud. By the end of this hearing, the evidence that Tim Walz is guilty is so overwhelming that Congress moves to have criminal charges brought against him. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. But let's start with a lovely Somali man at a city council meeting threatening Democrats to stop investigating their fraud or else they will stop voting Democrat.
My name is Mohammed. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Somali community in Lewiston.
Some of you sitting here today, we voted for you. We elected you to protect our community interests, not creating division or go after one elected member from our community. If this narrative continues, our community will be forced to re-examine our relationship, our political relationship, including our relationship with the Democratic Party and who will be voting in the future.
He just exposed the entire illegal arrangement between the Democrat Party and the Somali community. You vote for policies and programs that allow us to enrich ourselves, and we repay you with votes and kickbacks disguised as campaign contributions. Most liberals, while they're proudly advocating for mass third world migration, have no idea how tribalistic third world politics are. Somalia is so dysfunctional because it's just a bunch of clan feudalism. Everybody tearing the country apart, trying to get the most that they can to benefit their own tribe. And the reason we're seeing such polarization and destabilization here in America is because Democrats are playing the exact same game with identity politics. This extreme third world tribalism is how the Somali...
Yeah, that's to say the least. You think? They're definitely destabilizing. I don't want to say the whole country, but definitely a great deal of people, at least the people that want to vote for them when it comes to this identity politics and this race pandering.
Somali fraud in Minnesota got so big and lasted for so long. Because if any honest member of the Somali community came forward and exposed the fraud that was happening, they would be immediately exiled from the tribe. And because they're completely unassimilated in American society because Democrats told them assimilation is racist, being a part of the tribe is a matter of survival. That's why the white as mayonnaise mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, gives all of his public remarks in Somali now, because the Somali voting bloc gave him a choice: adhere to our demands or we will install one of our own. And as Ilhan Omar frequently and unapologetically states, her interests are the interests of Somalia. And that is the same for the entire Somali community. That's why over 90% of the people charged in this welfare scandal so far have been Somali. Not because white people couldn't have done it, or Asian people, or Hispanic people, or black people couldn't have done it, but because Somalis were the only ones who were so indifferent to robbing a program meant to benefit American children for their own benefit. But before we go into the hearing, let's hear from Congressman Byron Donalds, who recapped the hearing by saying Tim Walz is a...
So Brandon usually does a great job with his clips and doing his research. So the next two clips that he plays, I really want you guys to pay attention, especially this one when it comes to Byron Donalds. Let's listen.
100% guilty.
Back in Washington, just left the oversight hearing on Minnesota. I mean, this thing is crazy. You have the governor and his team going after whistleblowers, state employees, trying to do the right thing in Minnesota to explain the fraud that was happening, to get it under control. And it looks like Governor Walz, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, Keith Ellison, not only did they know about it, they were trying to protect the fraud to continue. These fraudsters were donating campaign cash to the governor and the attorney general. The whistleblowers who were coming forward were threatened. Their jobs were threatened. Their careers were threatened. And then we find out that the fraudsters were buying property in Kenya and Turkey, sending money back to Somalia. The money going back to Somalia could potentially have fallen into the hands of Al-Shabaab, the Al-Qaeda affiliates in Somalia. Absolute crazy stuff.
But at this congressional hearing, Congressman Brandon Gill makes himself famous by confronting the one Somali-loving, self-hating white guy witness with the true, brutal statistics of the Somali problem in Minnesota.
Ask you, does large-scale Somali immigration make Minnesota stronger or weaker?
Certainly stronger.
Certainly stronger. Do you know what percentage of Somali-headed households?
And we already knew he was going to say that. Now, we have some on the right that will say definitely weaker. And there's a reason why they'll say that. You had Matt Walsh say if you are allow the third world to come here, you become the third world. And I'm paraphrasing, but a lot of people actually agreed with that, even though they might not agree with Matt Walsh, right? They're saying if you deport enough of these people here, you deport the third world, we become the third world. So there is something to that.
Households in Minnesota are on food stamps?
No.
54%. Do you know what that number is for native Minnesota-headed households?
Well, to be
okay, so for the so for the Somalian community, it's 54% of them that are on food stamps or welfare. I was wondering that number earlier. I was in the 80s, but I think I was actually thinking about maybe some of them who have like legal status, but it's 54% when it comes to benefits.
Clear, a majority of the...
It's 7%. There's a big difference between 54% and 7%, is there not?
Excuse me, sir, could I answer the question?
Let me move on. We've got a lot of questions here. What percentage of Somali-headed households in Minnesota are on Medicaid?
I don't know.
It's 73%. Do you know what that number is for Minnesota native households?
Again, you're using the phrase Minnesota native households, but the majority...
The number is 18%. That's quite an astounding difference. I think we would agree.
Can I answer the question, please?
Let me ask you one more, and then we can go on to that. What percentage of Somali-headed households are on welfare in general?
I don't know.
It's 81%. What about, let me just ask you, after 10 years of being in the United States, what percentage of Somali immigrant households continue to be on welfare?
I don't know.
The number is 78%.
So for all the third world mass migration loving liberals who believe that arbitrarily bringing in non-white people makes our country better because of diversity, how can you explain the economic and cultural benefit of them not assimilating into American society and preserving their barbaric, backward, primitive culture, while also overwhelmingly needing to be on government welfare just to survive? Our system and our culture cannot sustain itself the moment American citizens feel like them being hardworking, self-sufficient, contributing members of society makes them a sucker, makes them an idiot who is living a lower quality of life than a Somali immigrant who's electing not to work, who has 4 or 5 children to maximize the amount of welfare they receive, and then set up a home daycare center so they can bill the government to watch their own children. Why would liberals expect people who can't set up the most basic form of government and accept incest as part of their culture to culturally enrich the United States and be productive, contributing members of society? It's almost like they're telling us we should be happy to have our tax dollars robbed by Somalis. That's just the cost of diversity. But Brandon Gill questions the other witnesses on the panel, and this is where they reveal just how complicit Tim Walz was.
This isn't just a wallet, it's a rare find. There's something different about owning something almost nobody else has. That's why when Ridge dropped their limited Kintsugi collection, I had to grab one.
Of working age Somalians who have been in the U.S. for 10 years or more, how many of them speak English very well?
I don't know.
About half. The answer is about half. That seems pretty low, doesn't it?
I would say that seems low after a decade, like 10 years or more. So maybe 10 to 12, 10 to 15 years and you still don't speak English. I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but you should be able to ask for like directions, some food, some help, where to find a place. That's really interesting.
Again, I keep trying
to... It doesn't sound like something that makes our country stronger to me, and I think most Americans would agree with me on that. I need to move on. Ms. Robbins, when would you say we concretely knew that widespread welfare fraud was occurring in Minnesota?
There have been reports since 2009 from the Office of Legislative Auditor. I would say the credible reports on child care fraud started surfacing 2011 to 2013.
So for over a decade?
Yes, sir.
When do you think Governor Walz knew about this fraud?
From the very beginning. He was running for governor in 2018 when there were prosecutions going on, when there was an OLA report, active cases in the news all the time.
And what was the Walz administration's response?
They actually did nothing when they got into office, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan had been on the committee in the legislature that had hearings on child care fraud, and when they got into office, they did put $5 million into a little more money, but nothing changed.
But nothing. And let me ask you, Mr. Hudson, thank you for being here. Did those who commit this fraud, do they typically vote for Republicans or Democrats? in your opinion?
In my opinion, thank you for qualifying like that, I would say they most definitely overwhelmingly vote for Democrats.
Do they typically donate to Republicans or Democrats?
Not to my knowledge. They
In your
don't
opinion?
donate to Republicans, they donate to Democrats, in my opinion, yes.
Got it. So would you say this is the Somali population is an important demographic for Democrats to win over politically?
Unquestionably.
Got it. And do you think it would have hurt Democrats' political standing with the Somali population to investigate this fraud?
Very clearly.
Got it. So in other words, you're saying that there was a political incentive to cover up widespread Somali fraud. Is that right?
100%.
Got it. Let me ask all three of you. Did the Walz administration and Democrats intentionally, in your opinion, overlook this fraud while it was happening for political gain? I'll start with you, Ms. Robbins.
Absolutely. We have credible whistleblower reports that the Department of Human Services administration up to the OIG and the commissioner met with a group called the Minnesota Minority.
Oh, he's going to be fried here because they're all going to say yes. He's literally about to be fried here.
Child Care Association multiple times, and that they were trying to weaken protections. We wanted, we had several changes we wanted to do, and they opposed all of them.
And Mr. Hudson and Ms. Rarick, and then my time is up.
I would agree.
Absolutely. The whistleblowers confirm it.
Got it. Thank you.
Once again, the Democrats are exposing the racism behind their politics of compassion. They're opposed to merit-based immigration because that would bring in too many white and Asian people. And these people won't vote Democrat because they're not enticed by low qualities that the Democrats offer. So they changed immigration policy to something that appears to humanitarian on the surface. More refugees, more asylum seekers, more people from the most destabilized countries on earth, because then they can publicly celebrate helping out people in need. But behind the scenes, their intention was to bring in the people who were most likely to be lifelong government welfare dependents and therefore vote Democrat. And then they allowed mass illegal Hispanic migration because in their worldview, these brown Hispanic people are perfectly suited to pick crops. Their goal was to bring in people whose lives were so bad that a lifetime on the government dole in comparison was like living in luxury. And as we saw in the first clip, the Somali man was offended at merely an investigation being opened. He didn't even say we're in support of an investigation into fraud because we're all innocent and anybody who's committing fraud is not representative of the Somali community. He said, don't look into fraud at all or Somalis are going to stop voting for you. And that's why at the end of this hearing, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna says, we've heard enough. Time to file charges against Tim Walz.
Honorable Robbins, based on your record before your committee, when did Governor Walz first become aware of widespread fraud in Minnesota's social service programs?
I would assume that he has been aware of it since he ran for office for governor in 2018.
By 2017, DHS investigators warned CCAP fraud could exceed 50%. What was that information elevated to the governor's office?
Yes, there was an OLA report.
Thank you, ma'am. By 2020, state officials knew feeding our future invoices were fraudulent. We know that payments continued to the AG's knowledge. Did they continue to the governor's knowledge as well?
Yes.
Attorney General Ellison agreed on tape to fight Minnesota's own Department of Human and Health Services in exchange for Somali political and financial support. In your personal opinion, do you believe it is a possibility that Governor Walz also made that personal deal or that he at least knew about the Attorney General's agreement?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't want to rehash what you guys have spent hours answering. We know that there's a big issue with the fraud in Minnesota. So on a number of things, I'd first like to point out, thank you for being here today. But because of your testimony and because of some of the evidence that we've seen brought forward, as well as I'm sure the fact that this committee, I assume, at Chairman Comer's direction will be soon subpoenaing AG Ellison, I would like to make criminal referrals regarding Governor Walz as well as AG Ellison. As you know, U.S. Code 371 and U.S. Code 2, which deals with criminalized conspiracies to defraud the United States and establishes liability for individuals who knowingly aid or abet the commission of federal offense, includes willful blindness or deliberate inaction where duties to act exist. So I will be referring.
A DSCR is a great way to get into your first investment property because you don't need to take on any personal debt and it's not reported on your credit.
them later on today.
So this coincides with the Department of Justice already opening a criminal investigation into Tim Walz. This is why he dropped out of the race for governor, not because the fraud got exposed. Minnesota is clearly filled with too many self-hating white liberals to care about the fraud. That's just a small price to pay for their diversity utopia. He dropped out of the race because he knows he is going to jail. And if the Democrat candidate for governor ended up going to jail, that would essentially just hand over the win to the Republicans. But the last thing I'm going to show you is, despite everything that's come out, all the evidence, all the proof, Zohran Mamdani also wants to get in on the fraud and announced that universal child care is coming to New York City with an emphasis on home care providers, the same thing that the Somalis took advantage of in Minnesota.
Not only when we make pre-K truly universal, but expand this care to include all 2- and 3-year-olds across the city. As the governor said, we will deliver to care by working in partnership with child care providers, especially home-based providers who have been doing this work without thanks or recognition for far too.
I don't think Democrats understand that most people, even I'm sure most right-leaning people, would be in favor of things like universal child care if we knew that the money was actually going to be spent effectively and would benefit Americans and not be defrauded by Somali pirates. People only support robust social programs in high-trust societies where they feel as if the next man isn't going to take advantage of their generosity. But when they see what happens in Minnesota and the politicians subsequently showing no concern at all, people become less supportive of social programs because they simply don't trust them. But in the case of anti-American agent of chaos Zohran Mamdani, I think he wants the fraud to happen. He sees it as a morally just redistribution of wealth from the billionaire class to the working class. And he gets to dress it up in a pretty veneer of helping out working families with children. But with all the billions being pumped into free childcare in New York City, Minnesota might be freed from the grip of Somali tyranny because all the Somalis are probably just going to now move to New York. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video.
All right, shout out to Brandon Lehman. We're going to go over to Dr. Phil's podcast talking to Tom Homan for a little bit. Let's take a listen. My wife brought up a good point. She said that Tom Homan talked about, like, how he's not enjoying everything either. I'm not live.
But why is it red up top?
What are you going to tell me?
Babe, because this is going up. That's crazy. How are your views going up? Yeah, you are.
I don't see it.
Because it's on you, babe.
No, because it still has this.
Can you hear yourself? Yeah, I see everything. Because you're not talking and the phone's next to it.
For his family.
I mean, do we believe what Tom Homan's saying? I think I do. Like, I don't think the guy's just... first of all, I don't think Tom Homan has anything to gain by lying to us. But I don't think the guy's just at home having a grand old time, you know, and just laughing it up. He says he's not in a good place emotionally or mentally for his family. And he says anytime you have to use... you know, physical force, especially brutal force, he's like, it affects you in a certain way, you know, and he's right. It really does. You know, a lot of the times in the military, we don't always get hand-to-hand combat, but depending on what branch you're in, what sector you're in, you do. And it's like, it affects you. Your body keeps score, right? That's what a good therapist would say. So I know emotionally this guy is going through it. Like, now there's videos all over the place. You have half the country saying he's a murderer, half the country saying like he's innocent, and he doesn't know what to think. So when Tom Homan says the man's not in a good place, I mean, listen, I'm a Christian, so it's like, I think that we should pray for the man. I know a lot of people on my channel follow Jesus, believe in God to some extent, and it's not everybody, and that's fine. Everybody's still welcome. But for those of us that do believe in Jesus, we should always be praying for the mental health and the mental stability of someone, because you never know what someone's going through. Guys, this is the reason why people will be sitting in traffic and someone will simply just blare the horn at them. Like, they will literally just like lean on the horn to where it's just ignorantly blowing, and all of a sudden a person in front of them gets out the car with a shotgun and they shoot in the front window, right? You just never know what people are going through mentally. You know what I'm saying? So it's important that we pray about things like that. All right, let's go to the next clip, guys.
Are shocked to learn they're playing.
All right, shout out to Marcel Miller. Hey Marcel, check this out. I'm not saying that he did need to use that force. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if you're new to the live streams or not, but I've said that he seemed to be a little bit trigger happy. For someone who's trained and has been in the Marine Corps, he seems to be a little bit trigger happy to me. At the same time, he also seems to be using his body to try to stop a vehicle, which I also think is a bit asinine. So, but believe me, I have my own opinion on this. Like, I'm not saying I side with everything I see in the video. I don't like the ICE agent's approach to it. You know, I really don't. And this is just me as an onlooker. But I'm just saying, like, in that situation, there's lots of reasons why he could have reacted the way he did, whether it was lack of training, whether it was fight or flight. So believe me, I'm not saying that this woman deserved to die by any means. Like, most of the country thinks it was a pretty grotesque offense, and I'm inclined to agree with that.
They lied about this.
So Brandon says, shout out to you, Brandon. Thanks for being active in the chat. Not for the family of the slain. You're going to pray for the dude that killed her. Both people, Brandon. I know it sounds weird, but that's something that Jesus would call us to do. The person that killed her, he still has a family. You know, he still has a wife and kids to take care of himself, and he's probably not in the greatest place, which is what Tom Homan is saying right now. So praying for his mental stability and his mental health is not a bad thing. You know, it's not saying that you love him or you totally agree with everything he did or that you even condone his behavior. You're just praying that, you know, if he is able to be an ICE agent again, that he makes better decisions, you know, that he's a good father, that, you know, he's stable enough to go out and do his job again. And if he's not, that he gets a different job. So yes, it's like, as followers of Jesus, sometimes we could be called to pray for people that others are like, what? You're praying for that person? And it's like, yeah, we're praying for that person. That Tom Homan is that there's a reason for that. Like, if the ICE, okay, so if if it's a 70%, if they're at 70% that they're arresting people who are either convicted, like they have some type of charge, criminal charge pending, then that's great. But then there's still something off if what he just said is true, which it is, right? That ICE agents will go into a neighborhood or to a certain, you know, part of a city. And next thing you know, they're surrounded around 70 to 100 people that want to hurt them. Well, why would that be like that? The only reason why that would be like that is because there's still something going on with ICE's approach, right? There's still something going on with the way that ICE is approaching people and they're dealing with their situation. So a lot of people don't like it. I've talked about this before, that people, even people who have voted for Trump, are pissed off with ICE's approach. That ICE needs to do better with their approach because people don't like the hands-on with especially with the women and the children and dragging people, you know, through the streets and things like that. So they still have to get better with things like that. That's why you still have people surrounding ICE and now busting up vehicles and messing up government property. And I'm not condoning that behavior. I'm just saying there's something to ICE's approach, even though it's a 70% rating, which is a great rating. It's still like something's still off. Saying that they were amateurs and poorly trained, but I did allude to that on like the last, I don't know, 2-3 live streams, because I said it. I said, dude, as someone who's been trained, who's been in the military, who's been in situations, right, where my weapon is drawn and things are heated, it's like he just seemed a bit trigger happy to me. Now, someone's like, he almost got ran over by a vehicle, and I'm like, dude, he did. So that's what I'm saying with the whole fight or flight thing. I said, but I also said at the same time, there were plenty of people that noticed, like, hey, is this guy trying to use his body to, like, stop a car? Like, is he not gonna, like, step out of the way and shoot? Or he just remained in the front, right? So that was also questionable for people as well. Like, if you do have good, reasonable training, like, you move out of the way when a vehicle's coming. You might shield a person. You don't try to use your body to stop a car. So now, I want to know from you guys watching, what do you think about what he's saying? He says, if you want to be helpful, then let us in the damn jail. So now, the only reason why I feel like there might be something to that is this. Could it be possible? Now, if you would disagree, just say, no, I don't think that's true, Q. I think they would still be buttholes. But could it be possible that if the sanctuary cities, or some that are acting as such, were to let Tom Holman and the ICE agents into the prison, could it be that, you know what, some of the videos that we're seeing on the streets we wouldn't have seen? Because if they're not letting them into the jails, and they're not letting them into the communities where violence and certain things are running rampant in these really large cities, it's like, well, the ICE agents are just going to go to the next best place or wherever they're sent. And then now that turns into neighborhoods where people are going to work at Home Depot, and then ICE is doing a raid at Home Depot. I mean, like, what are we talking about here? So that's what I'm saying. Like, would it be, do you guys think, would it be any different if they were let into the sanctuary cities where violence is high, and maybe inside the prisons? I think there might be just a little bit of change in some of the things we would have seen in the past.
More agents in the jail means less agents in the community. Why are these operations even occurring?
He just said it.
I said this from day one. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. More agents in the jail means less agents in the community. Why are these operations?
See, now, I didn't even get to watch this clip in its entirety, so I didn't know Tom Holman was going to say that. But that's what I was alluding to in my mind without explicitly saying it to you guys. Like, do you think that if they would have let the ICE agents into these sanctuary cities where violence is crazy, and there's a high population of maybe immigration, but violence is crazy, right? That's the key thing, not that there's just a high population. And then also the jails. Could it be that we would have seen less of what we see, where people are just being drugged out of their cars, and people are just being arrested coming out of work, and they're being chased down the street and then getting hit by a car? So Tom Holman says it himself. He says more agents in the jails, less agents in the communities. I'm not saying that he's telling 100% truth. Like, we still wouldn't see some things. I'm just asking you guys, do you think it's a possibility that we would have seen at least a little bit less than what we've seen?
Operations even occurring?
Like that, like sanctuaries or sanctuary cities or sanctuaries for criminals. And I'm like, gosh. I mean, of course, there's normal citizens there. We know that. But it's just, I just think that there's a little bit to what he's saying. I'm not saying he's telling 100% truth. I just think there's a little bit to what he's saying about more agents in the jails, you know, and in the communities where violence is high amongst the, maybe the migrant communities, less agents in the communities where people are just kind of going to work, going to Home Depot. You know, I think we would have seen a little bit less, guys. Will be Mayor Fry, and he's been losing it ever since this happened, and a little bit before that. And I said this in the last live stream, that it makes sense, right? The mayor is closer to the people. He's closer to the everyday citizen, surely a little bit closer than the governor, right? So his response, I feel like it's always going to be I don't want to say adolescent or more immature than the governor, but I feel like it's going to be more raw. Like so that's why he's going to answer the way that he did. He's going to respond that way. Put that right there. If you guys want to watch the rest of that, go over to Dr. Phil's podcast and finish watching Dr. Phil and Tom Holman. We're going to go over to Truth Be Told and end the live stream with a Christian clip. So let's head over there now.
You've been doing YouTube backwards, and honestly, most creators never figure this out. There are 3 mistakes that are...
Okay, so this is Lee Strobel on why so many Christians feel far from God. If you're a Christian, I'm sure that you will enjoy this and it will be encouraging for you. If you're not, I'm sure that it will be encouraging for you as well. And just make sure you watch it with an open mind. Shout out to you guys. Hit that like button for me, guys. Let's take a watch.
Have you ever been in that place where you would say you believe in God, but you felt distant from him? Not because you doubt him necessarily, but because you don't feel near him. If so, you're not alone. I mean, I've been there myself. And so in this short video that I put together, Lee Strobel, who was a former atheist himself until he wrote the book, The Case for Christ, he shares something very simple but extremely profound because it's something that most believers overlook, yet will completely change their life. So hit that like button. Let's get this out to more people, and let's check this out together.
There are about 20 different lines of evidence that point in the direction of Christianity being true. They're arrows. They point that way. But it's not enough just to know that. Because the Bible says in John 1:12, as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, even to those who believed in his name. So the formula is believe plus receive equals become. Amen. So you can believe that all this evidence points in the direction of Jesus being the unique Son of God, who offers to forgive our sins and spend eternity with us in heaven. You can believe that, but even the demons believe that. And they shudder at the implications.
Truth.
You have to take a step of faith. But it's in the same direction the evidence is pointing. That's logical. That's rational. We do that every day of our life. When we take that step of faith and we receive that free gift of forgiveness and eternal life through Jesus Christ, we become adopted as his son or daughter forever. The Holy Spirit takes up residence inside of us and will give us over time increasing confidence and awareness of our relationship with God, which we then build through reading the Word of God, reading the Bible, which is what he wants us to know. So, we say, I wish God would talk to me. Here's 800,000 words. Yeah, he's talked to us. Read that. Yeah. So the Bible helps us understand who God is. And then to pray. You started out very haltingly, God, I hope you're there. I hope you hear me, But as you grow and mature in your faith, you begin to realize, no, God is there. God is real. I've seen evidence of it in my life. I've seen him do things in my life that I cannot explain naturalistically. And it gives me confidence that when I pray, he's listening. And it builds your faith. It encourages you.
Now, for those of you who don't know who Lee Strobel is, I think he's one of the best people to be talking about this right now. If you guys have heard of a movie or a book called The Case for Christ, Lee Strobel would be the star of that book, a reporter who, basically went on a journey to figure out if, the crucifixion of Jesus was real. And if you guys know that story, I encourage you to go watch it or read the book. It really is a great story.
Amen. What do you think so far? Like I said, very simple. But let me just share some key thoughts, and we're going to finish this video. It's almost over already. This will not be a long video. But think about it. Like, Christianity does not ask you to shut your brain off. It's not like saying believe without evidence. God has already given us evidence. He's given us evidence in creation, in our conscience, through history, and ultimately through Christ. It says in Romans chapter 1, verse 20, that his invisible attributes, like his divine power and his divine nature, it's been clearly perceived through what he's created, so that we're without excuse. The evidence is already there. But belief alone doesn't transform anyone. It's not going to transform you to say, I believe in God, or I believe that he exists, or I believe in Jesus. No, we got to take it a step farther into faith. It takes faith for life to change, for Christ to move in your life, to change your heart, to change your situation. For evidence points towards God, yes, but it's faith. It means we begin to act on our belief and practically move in a different direction. For example, we all often say, I wish God would talk to me. Well, he already has, at great length, through Scripture. The problem is, we think reading Scripture is just, for us a box to check off or something to rush through, or maybe it's something we do to earn God's favor. But it takes faith to read the Word and understand that it's not meant to be skimmed or rushed or checked off. It's meant to be received. We're called to meditate on God's Word and to let it live in us and begin to affect our heart, our minds. That's why in Psalm chapter 119, verse 105 says, your Word, God's Word, is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Don't read the Bible to get through it. Read it so God can get through you. It's amazing. But take that step of faith and realize that God is talking to you. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you a practical way we can do this. But it doesn't just stop there. Have faith enough to pray to the Lord. Because prayer isn't just asking for things when you want something like a genie. That's ridiculous. That's like a fairy tale. But rather, prayer is literally spending time with your...
I usually see people on both ends of that. Like, I usually see people that only communicate with God if they need something, right? So it's like they only go to him if something's wrong, or they do their best not to ask him for anything at all, which in my opinion, it is a very prideful stance, but they won't say that. They won't say it's prideful. They'll just say, you know, like little things sometimes that even talks about how cliche their faith is. Like, you know, God doesn't need to be busy with something as small as that. So, you know, I don't go to God for small things, almost as if that's a good thing, when in all actuality, it's not. God wants you to go to him for small and big things.
Father. By faith, you know that he exists. By faith, you know that he loves you. And, you know, take that in and praise him and thank him and sit with him. Ask him to shape your heart. This is where faith becomes very personal. That's why Jesus, when asked how to pray, he said, pray, our Father who is in heaven, right? And some of us don't have very loving earthly fathers, but this is not an earthly father. This is a heavenly Father, your creator, who gave his son for you so that you could have eternal life. He loves you more than anyone. And all he wants is your heart. Not what you can do for him, but he wants your time. He wants your faith. Spend time with the Lord. It'll change your life. And I'll share with you a quick story in the next break here about how it changed my life, because I want you to stick with me, because this next part answers a question that most believers never slow down enough to ask. And it changes how we understand our faith entirely. So let's continue.
And it gets to the point where even the disciples, they were willing to die for their conviction that Jesus is the unique Son of God who proved it by returning from the dead. We don't know how all the disciples ended up dying. That gets a little lost in history, but their willingness to die for that conviction is well established by 7 ancient sources, inside and outside the Bible. So they became convinced it was true because they talked to the resurrected Jesus. They ate with them. They experienced him. And knowing it was true, they were willing to die for that conviction. Well, we meet Jesus in not a physical way as they did, but we meet him when we receive him as our forgiver and as our leader. And the Holy Spirit takes up residence in us. We begin a relationship with him. We listen to him through his word. We speak to him through our prayer. We watch his interactions with us, things he does in our life that we can't explain away.
When your kid is hurting and there's nothing you can do about it.
And it makes us stronger in our faith so that we grow to that point where maybe someday, maybe in this country someday, we will be persecuted for our faith. And then that's a test. Will we stand up for what we believe and know is true?
It's a good question. Again, to stand up for what we believe in is faith. And as Lee is sharing, you know, we may not meet Jesus physically on this side of heaven. We may not physically meet him like the disciples did, but we do meet him, as he said, when we receive him, when we believe in him, when we lay down our sins, we lay down our past, and we say, I need you. Come into my heart. I turn from my sins, and I make you my Lord and Savior. And at that point, the Holy Spirit begins to take residence within us. The Holy Spirit becomes alive in us. That's when we become born again. And that's where we meet him. The Holy Spirit of Christ is in us. That's why Jesus said, it's better that I go away, because I will send you the Holy Spirit. He will come and dwell with you and will be in you. That's what Jesus said. When the Holy Spirit comes in, this is why Christianity for me is not just a belief. It's a way of life. It's who I am. I don't believe in Christianity. I'm a Christian. That's my identity. I take my identity in Jesus. That's who I am now. And not to mention, as he said, we meet the Lord when we read the scripture, when we listen to what it says, we let it move in our heart, and when prayer becomes relational and not routine. in my own life, when I began to make prayer a priority, I could sense that the Lord has been calling me into this deeper prayer life where I would make time for him in the morning. I knew he was doing that. I knew he was.
And it's so easy to do this, right? It's so easy to slip up and not make prayer a priority, right? Because you got people who will be like, yeah, I pray. But what Jeremiah is talking about is a very intentional prayer life, right? Like setting time aside to spend time with God. And some people don't do that. It's funny because we'll set an alarm clock to wake up for work. We'll set an alarm to make sure we make it to our next meeting. We'll set an alarm to make sure we get the kids somewhere on time. But it's like we don't set an hour aside and say, you know what, Lord, I'm going to go talk to you. Like, I'm going to go sit in a park and I'm going to pray and I'm going to read, one chapter of the Bible just so I could get closer to you and I can understand your word more. We don't make time to do things like that for God, right? Because it's like we're in a world that's not looking for him. And the crazy thing is you guys will listen to me and hear me say that, but the Bible even says that. The Bible says that there are people in the world that they're not looking for God. They're not interested in him. They don't care about him. And that's a scary thing for me because I care about the soul of people. Like if you feel like you care about people to the point where, you know what, when I leave this earth, there are a few people that I want to see again. There are a few people that I want to make sure that I can say hi to them again. You want to make sure that they know Jesus. It doesn't matter if people make fun of you for this, right? And they say, oh, it's 2026 and those Christians are still talking about Jesus. So what? Like people are going to say things like that. But at the end of the day, like we still have to spread the word because the Lord is coming back. And if we don't do our job, then it's like, I love the fact that Charlie Kirk will talk about populating heaven. My wife would tell you guys that's something, not exactly in those words, but that's something I would say make heaven crowded, something to that effect, that I would say before I ever even knew Charlie Kirk said that. Because as a Christian, that should be something that's on your heart. That should be something that's on your mind. Like, we don't get people to heaven. The Holy Spirit does. But, as the scripture said, being co-workers with God. So let's keep watching. We're almost finished, guys.
Was drawing me into that deeper place, that secret place where I could be alone with him and hear his voice and let him pour his love on my life. I finally changed my habits. I made a decision. I said, Lord, you're going to be first. And I got my prayer closet. And man, it was a very, very needed time in my life. Whenever I won't get into it right now, but I really needed it in my life. I mean, there was a lot of things going on where, man, like I was going to lose it if I didn't. Like my patience it was wearing so thin. And, I kept praying to the scriptures and kept asking God, make me slow to speak, slow to anger, make me quick to listen. That's from the book of James, right there in the scripture. I'm praying the scripture and I'm slowing down. Like, why do you think the enemy wants us distracted so much? It's because, in the story of Mary and Martha, it was Mary that sat at Jesus' feet, that spent time close with Christ, that listened to him and slowed down. She is the one that Jesus said, she did it right. It was Martha that got real busy. That, she's doing good things. She's preparing for Jesus to have dinner there. Like don't get me wrong, Martha's doing great. But she's not doing the best thing. And that's what many of us do. We get busy. We do. Even reading scripture, like I said, or praying quickly, or only praying in our...
I really love how Jeremiah said that. That's a great... I love the way he articulated that because it's true. Mary is the one that went and sat at the feet of Jesus, like a child, and sat and spent time with the Lord. And while Martha was doing a good thing, right? She was #killing it. We got to remember, because we do this in life. Like, she was doing a good thing, but she wasn't doing the best thing. And I think that I love the way that he articulated that, because often we find ourselves in those spaces, right, where we could be doing something that's good and we could be upset that someone's criticizing us for it, right? Like, we're going to work every day, right? We're taking care of our families. You know what I'm saying? We're saving our money. But then it's like when it comes to our relationship with Christ, and it's like, when's the last time you prayed for someone in public? When's the last time you went up to someone in a supermarket and like you paid for their groceries, or you asked a homeless person, can I pray for you, after you gave them $1 bill, and you didn't just give them $1 bill like they didn't matter, but you also prayed for them. Like, when's the last time you visited a hospital, or, visited a prison, or visited a children's hospital where their parents don't go see them? And these are the things where it's like, are we actually living out our faith?
Our car, or only when we got time for it, when we're distracted. That's what the enemy wants. But God says, sit at my feet and you will hear my voice. Draw near to me, and I'll draw near to you. Our relationship with Christ may be different than the disciples at first glance, but truly the encounter, the love, and the peace, the transformation, my friends, is the exact same. Because when you encounter the living Christ, not just in your mind, but in your heart, in a spiritual presence, man, your faith will naturally produce what the Bible calls fruit. Fruit is a reshaping of your desires, what you want, your priorities, what you do, what's most important to you. It will reshape your courage. You'll begin to get bold. You'll begin to realize, man, how true this is, how Jesus really loves the world and he wants to use your life. And so you'll be obedient and courageous and just loving people and sharing people with him. John 15:8, Jesus says, by this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit. Not that you believe in me, but that you become transformed by the renewing of your mind, that your heart changes and all these things in your life change. Be his witness in this world that desperately needs him. Your fruit, your change, your life change is the evidence that faith has gone way deeper than just belief. And man, that's the only way to live. That's the only way to live. So that's my encouragement, my friends, to you. Don't rush your faith. Don't treat scripture.
Shout out to Jeremiah. Hey guys, remember, you don't have to be in the church to accept Christ. You could do it. One of our pastors, I like the way they said it. They always articulated it best. You could do it on the altar of your heart. So just remember that Jesus is for everybody, for those that want him. Shout out to you guys for hanging out on the corner with me and listening to the Christian clip. I will be back in a couple hours for the Saturday live stream. I enjoy hanging out with you guys on the corner. Until next time, guys, in a little while, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves, love one another, be peaceful. Tell somebody about Jesus. Peace.